Chapter 1, Star Ocean Entertainment Tower, 33rd floor. The grueling 3-hour pitch meeting for the new film finally wrapped up. Soon, the only people left in the conference room were Aurora Kingsley and her agent, Laura. Laura set the script down. "Aurora, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Director Lee just won a major international award. All you have to do is cut your hair, and the lead role is yours." There was no denying Aurora's beauty. Her long, raven hair cascaded like a waterfall, partially veiling her fair, striking features. She was captivatingly alluring. How else could she have climbed to the top of the entertainment industry in just 3 years? Besides, she was incredibly hardworking. No matter how grueling a shoot was, she never complained. Her only rule, her one non-negotiable, was her hair. It could not be cut. But Laura was one of the few in the industry who knew this one rule wasn't for herself. Aurora glanced at the script again. She knew it was a fantastic film, a role she would love, but she didn't agree right away. "I'm going up to the 52nd floor, she said instead. "Good. Go talk it over with Mr. Harrison." The 52nd floor housed the office of Ethan Harrison, the president of Star Ocean Entertainment. As her agent, Laura was well aware of Aurora's relationship with him. What she never understood was Mr. Harrison's deep obsession with Aurora's long hair. Taking the private elevator up to the 52nd floor, Aurora stepped into the office in her high heels. Ethan Harrison sat behind his presidential desk, dressed in an impeccable black suit. Gold-rimmed glasses rested on his handsome face, accentuating his naturally cool and aloof aura. Looking at the man she had loved for years, Aurora's expression softened. "Ethan, I need to talk to you about something." "What is it?" Ethan looked up, his voice a low, gentle rumble. "I've been offered a new film, but the role requires me to cut my hair." Before she could finish, Ethan's warm expression instantly turned to ice. "Absolutely not." She knew he'd say that. In the 3 years they'd been secretly together, he had always adored her flowing, wavy hair. He never allowed her to dye it, perm it, let alone cut it. "But I really love this role." She tried to argue, but Ethan's patience had clearly run out. "I'll say it again. You are not cutting your hair." His cold tone was so unfamiliar it shocked her. He had always been so gentle with her. Just then, the intercom buzzed. Ethan pressed the button. "Mr. Harrison, the 3:30 meeting starts in 10 minutes. "Okay," Ethan replied curtly. He stood up, muttered that he had to go, and brushed past her without another glance, leaving the office. He didn't come back, nor did he return to the villa they shared. It took her 2 days to finally realize just how angry he was. Alone in the empty villa, Aurora felt a pang of sadness. Ethan had always been good to her, but deep down, he possessed the domineering nature of a man in power. Whenever they disagreed, he wouldn't argue. Instead, he always had a way of making her be the first one to back down. After 3 days, Aurora couldn't take it anymore. Ignoring the pressure from Laura, she officially turned down the film. That evening, she sent Ethan an apology text. After finishing work, she changed into the red dress he loved to see her in and dabbed on his favorite perfume. The night was still and silent. As she walked into the sprawling villa in her heels and flipped on the lights, she found Ethan sitting in the middle of the living room, surrounded by empty beer cans. Aurora rushed over to help him up. "Ethan, why have you been drinking so much?" The tall man leaned heavily against her small frame. Ethan looked up at her, his drunken eyes widening slightly as they focused on her red dress and long hair. He froze for a moment. He wrapped his arms around her, the intoxicating scent of alcohol washing over her. A wave of guilt washed over her. She thought he was drinking because of their fight. She whispered, "It's okay. I turned down the movie. I won't cut my hair, so please don't be angry." MMPH. Her words were cut short by an urgent kiss. Ethan swept her into his arms and carried her towards the bedroom. Later that night, as they held each other tightly in the dark, she heard him whisper her name over and over. "Anya." His voice was thick with affection, almost lingering. Something about it felt strange, but she was too exhausted to dwell on it. She drifted off to sleep, the name Anya echoing in her ears. Chapter 2, after that night, their Cold War finally ended. Ethan went back to being the gentle, doting man she knew. A week later was the 3rd anniversary of her debut. As was their tradition, Laura never scheduled any work for her on that day, and Aurora would spend it with Ethan. It wasn't just the anniversary of her debut. It was the day they had met. 3 years ago, a freshly debuted Aurora was dragged to a networking dinner where an old lech had drugged her drink. That night could have ruined her, but Ethan had saved her. Afterward, she joined Star Ocean Entertainment and became his secret girlfriend. From that day on, Aurora only had eyes for him. Every year on this day, Ethan would prepare a surprise for her. This year, she wanted to surprise him by cooking an elaborate dinner. But she waited at the villa from dusk until deep into the night, and Ethan never showed up. Eventually, with all the food gone cold, an exhausted Aurora fell asleep on the living room sofa. The next day, she rushed to the company, only to find that Ethan wasn't there either. Instead, Laura showed her a news alert. Aurora took the phone. The moment she saw the familiar profile in the paparazzi photo, she froze. The headline read, "Popular starlet Bianca White returns. Star Ocean president greets her at the airport late at night. Bianca White." The Star Ocean actress who had suddenly vanished 3 years ago? Aurora trembled. So, the reason he didn't show up last night was because he was at the airport picking up Bianca White. Laura watched her expression carefully. "Aurora, are you okay?" Aurora forced a smile. "I'm fine." Bianca used to be a Star Ocean artist. Maybe Ethan was just meeting an old friend, or maybe it was for work. She had to trust him. She couldn't let these baseless rumors get to her. But despite telling herself that, she couldn't settle down all day. She messed up an unusual number of takes during her commercial shoot. By the time she got back to the villa, it was past 9. As she stepped inside, she saw Ethan's shoes next to a pair of delicate women's shoes by the door. He was back. With who? Then, Aurora saw Bianca White walk out of the bathroom, wearing her slippers. At the same moment, Ethan emerged from his study. The three of them stared at each other in stunned silence. He brought another woman to their house and let her wear her slippers. Bianca smiled and explained, "I'm so sorry, Miss Kingsley. The paparazzi were following me, and I couldn't go home. Ethan brought me here to lie low for a bit." Seeing her, Aurora felt a strange sense of familiarity, probably because they both had the same long, beautiful dark hair. She clenched her fists, an unsettling feeling rising in her chest, but she said nothing, just giving a polite nod. Aurora walked toward Ethan, unable to stop herself from asking, "Ethan, why didn't you come home yesterday?" "I waited for you all night." Ethan frowned. He didn't soothe her as he usually would. Instead, his gaze shot past Aurora to Bianca, who was pouring a glass of water. "That's cold water." He walked right past Aurora, took the pitcher from Bianca's hand, and poured her a glass of warm water instead. His tone was gently chiding. "You were just out in the rain. You can't drink cold water." Bianca gave a playful smile and accepted the warm glass. Aurora stood frozen, watching their easy, natural intimacy. Yesterday's events combined with the scene before her made her lose her composure. She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Why won't you answer me? Where were you yesterday?" Her persistence seemed to annoy Ethan. "Can't you see we have a guest?" "What's with all the drama?" Seeing the tension, Bianca quickly interjected with an apologetic tone, "I'm so sorry. I was swarmed by paparazzi and obsessive fans yesterday." Ethan had to drive around for hours to shake them. A roar filled Aurora's head, drowning out everything else. She stared straight at Ethan. "So, you two were together all night?" The atmosphere became painfully awkward. Bianca quickly said, "I'm so sorry, I'm interrupting. I should go." With that, she turned and ran, giving no one a chance to stop her. Aurora was about to speak, but Ethan's expression changed as he watched Bianca run out. He called out instinctively, "Anya Chapter 3, that name Anya made Aurora freeze. She felt like she had heard it somewhere before, but she had no time to think. Her mind was reeling. Did Ethan just abandon her to chase after Bianca? He didn't come back that night. Aurora stood alone in the living room, hurt, confused, and overwhelmed with bewilderment. Why had the man who always doted on her suddenly changed so drastically? The next day, she forced herself to go to the company, only to learn that most of her advertising endorsements for the next month had been snatched away. In the break room, Laura said grimly, "That Bianca White, she just came back and has already stolen so many of our resources. I wonder which sugar daddy she found." Bianca White again. Aurora didn't reply, her mind consumed with thoughts of Ethan. She didn't even notice when Laura left. Suddenly, her head shot up. She remembered where she had heard Anya before Ethan had called her that back then. She thought he was calling her Anya for Aurora, but it wasn't. He was calling out Anya. For Bianca's name, it was like a bucket of ice water had been dumped over her head, chilling her to the bone. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Bianca White walked in, wearing a red dress and striding confidently on her long legs. She wore the same apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, Miss Kingsley. I didn't mean to take your endorsements." Aurora looked at Bianca's dark hair, so similar to her own, and smelled the familiar perfume on her. An unbelievable thought sparked in her mind and began to spread like wildfire. But Bianca, seemingly oblivious to Aurora's distress, sat down beside her. "I really didn't expect Ethan to cut so many of your resources all at once." Aurora flinched. Ethan had helped Bianca take them from her. What is your relationship with him?" Bianca sighed. "Ethan and I used to be a couple. We had some disagreements, so I went abroad." "A couple? I know you've been with him for the past 3 years, and you must have put up with a lot." "Ethan seems gentle, but he's actually very controlling. He always loved my long hair and never wanted me to cut it." "I see you have long hair too. He must love it, right?" So, that was it. Aurora's eyes turned red. She finally understood why Ethan was so obsessed with her not cutting her hair. The long hair, the red dress, the perfume, the ex-girlfriend who had disappeared for 3 years. All the clues pointed to one devastating truth. There had been no mutual love. In Ethan's eyes, she had been nothing but a ridiculous substitute from the very beginning. Bianca was still talking. "We used to be so in love. He was always talking about marriage, but I was too young then and just wanted my freedom, so I missed my chance. It's a shame, thinking about it now." Marriage, in her 3 years with Ethan, he had never once mentioned those 2 words. He'd never even introduced her to his family. Aurora had always assumed he was just focused on work. So, when he truly loved someone, he wanted to marry them? Aurora trembled, then shot to her feet. Mustering the last of her dignity, she excused herself and walked straight to the 52nd floor. He was inside. He still had that cool, noble air, but when he saw her, his expression was no longer gentle. His voice was heavy. "You're here, I have something to tell you." Aurora fought back the stinging in her eyes. "What is it?" Ethan didn't even look up, his gaze fixed on the report in his hands. "Let's break up." "Is it because of Bianca White?" Ethan paused for a moment, as if not wanting to tarnish Bianca's reputation. He said coldly, "Our breakup is between us. It has nothing to do with anyone else." "Nothing to do with her." Aurora gave a bitter smile, her heart sinking lower and lower. Even with the truth staring her in the face, she needed to hear it from him. Her voice was hoarse. "Fine, we can break up, but I want to ask one last question. The only reason you got together with me was because you saw me as a substitute for Bianca, wasn't it?" If he just said no, she would believe him. She wouldn't blame him. At least then, she could believe that Ethan had once felt even a shred of genuine affection for her. Seeing the tears welling in her eyes, Ethan remained silent for a few seconds, but he didn't offer her a shred of mercy. His deep voice finally answered. "Yes, I always saw you as Anya." Chapter 4, his words were a knife plunging straight into Aurora's heart. Her eyes widened, shimmering with unshed tears that she refused to let fall. The blow was so immense that she seemed to lose her senses for a moment before she could finally speak. "So, you never loved me." It was a statement, not a question. Ethan finally lifted his gaze, his voice clear and cold. "You've been obedient these past few years. I'll compensate you after the breakup. My assistant will contact Laura with new resources for you." "There's no need," Aurora said, finding the offer laughable. She repeated herself, her voice sharp. "No need. Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Harrison." She turned and left, her retreat hasty and panicked. After forcing herself away from the 52nd floor, she was passing the break room when Laura grabbed her arm. "Finally found you have a print shoot today. The photographer is already waiting." Laura chattered on, pulling Aurora toward Star Ocean's exclusive photo studio. But when they arrived, they found that the studio they had booked was already being used by Bianca White. Even the renowned photographer, Chen Yan, whom Laura had gone to great lengths to book, had been poached by her. Furious, Laura confronted Bianca's agent, a sharp-looking woman with short hair. The agent glanced dismissively at Aurora and put on her sunglasses. "Mr. Harrison said that Bianca's work takes priority over everything. If Miss Kingsley has a problem, she can take it up with Mr. Harrison directly." Her smug attitude infuriated Laura, who was about to argue further when Aurora tugged at her sleeve. Let it go. Seeing that Aurora herself wasn't going to make a scene, Laura had to back down, swallowing her anger as they left. Mr. Harrison is your boyfriend, how could he give Bianca such special treatment? This is infuriating. Laura was genuinely livid. As Aurora's agent, she was used to being respected at Star Ocean, if not feared. No one dared to cross her. Now she was being bullied like this. Aurora's eyes were dull. Not anymore, she said softly. She hadn't realized that when Ethan truly doted on someone, he threw all rules and principles out the window. The special treatment she thought she'd had for the past 3 years was just a crumb of kindness he'd tossed her way for Bianca's sake. Laura looked stunned, as if she'd misheard. What did you say? Aurora repeated. He's not my boyfriend anymore. A little while ago, he dumped me. The more she spoke, the redder her eyes became. Murmuring, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to rest. She left the studio. But when she got to her usual break room, she found that her VIP lounge had been relabeled Bianca White's room. She had no choice but to find an empty spot and lie down on a sofa, her mind hazy as she replayed the last 3 years. She felt like Cinderella, who had snuck onto the pumpkin carriage. But when the clock struck midnight, she finally woke from the fantasy. She realized the glass slippers, the beautiful gown, the beloved prince, none of it had ever been hers. Aurora closed her eyes wearily, and a single tear fell to the floor. When she woke up, the sky outside was dark. A glance at her phone told her it was already 7 in the evening. She forced her aching body up and made her way to the first-floor lobby, where she saw Ethan standing there. He obviously saw her too, his eyes lingering on her pale face. Why are you still at the company? His suit jacket was draped over his left arm, and he held a car key in his other hand, looking like he was waiting for someone. For a moment, Aurora felt a strange sense of déjà vu. This was how he used to wait for her when she finished work late. She opened her mouth to speak. Just then, Bianca's voice came from behind her. Ethan, I'm ready. Let's go. Aurora's words died in her throat. She watched as Bianca stood familiarly beside Ethan, linking her arm through his. Bianca looked at Aurora with feigned surprise. Aurora, are you leaving too? No, I have to discuss some work with Laura. She made up an excuse, anything to seem less pathetic. Ethan nodded, said nothing more, and turned to leave with Bianca on his arm. Chapter 5, Aurora stood frozen, watching them walk away until they were out of sight. Only then did she slowly step outside. Over the next few days, Aurora had her things moved out of the villa and rented a small apartment for herself. Her workload dwindled as the entire company's focus shifted to Bianca's comeback. No one paid her any mind, but she didn't care anymore. She ran a high fever for 3 days and 3 nights. Once she looked slightly better, she dragged her weak body to find Laura. Laura, I want to terminate my contract. Can you please talk to the higher-ups for me? Laura stared at her in disbelief. You want to terminate your contract? Aurora, I know you and Mr. Harrison broke up, but don't throw away your career out of spite. Do you have any idea how much the breach of contract penalty is? I know things have been a little cozy between Mr. Harrison and Bianca lately, and it must be hard for you to watch, but… Aurora cut her off, her decision firm. I've saved some money over the years. I should be able to scrape together the penalty fee. Laura, thank you for managing me all this time. You've worked hard. Laura had painstakingly built Aurora into an A-list starlet. She wasn't about to let her cash cow walk away. Suddenly, an idea struck her. Aurora, don't be rash. Listen, that Bianca White won't be smug for long. She thinks she's hidden her messy past in the US so well, but in this industry, there are no secrets. You don't know, do you? After she left the industry and went abroad 3 years ago, she got pregnant and married some rich Chinese-American guy, breaking up his original marriage. But she lost the baby, and his family never approved of her. They forced her to divorce. She only came back because she was kicked out of that wealthy family. What? Hearing this, Aurora's expression finally shifted. Why would Bianca leave Ethan, who adored her so much, to marry someone in America? Did Ethan know about all this? And if he did, was he still willing to take her back? A man as proud as Ethan, could he really love someone that much? Sensing the change in her expression, Laura pressed her advantage. So don't you worry. The top spot at Star Ocean will still be yours. As for Mr. Harrison, once he sees Bianca for who she really is, he'll realize who's best for him. Think about everything you've done for him over the years. I refuse to believe he doesn't know. Even if he loves Bianca, you're the one who's been by his side all this time when his father passed away. You stayed with him at the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. When he was sick, you took care of him day and night. When he couldn't sleep, you learned aromatherapy for him. A whirlwind of thoughts rushed through Aurora's mind, but she still shook her head with a bitter smile. Laura, he made it very clear to me who he loves. And I see it clearly too. As for Bianca's private life, it's not my place to interfere. So, I'm sorry, but I still want to terminate the contract. She made her intentions clear. After asking Laura to bring the matter to the executives, she left her agent's house. For the next few days, Aurora shut herself in her apartment, waiting for Laura to arrive with the termination papers. But when the doorbell rang, it wasn't Laura she found standing there, it was Ethan. Aurora, I used to think you were obedient and kind. I never imagined you were capable of such schemes. His eyes were like ice, and the sight of them made her flinch. He grabbed her wrist, the pressure making her wince in pain. Schemes? I don't understand. Ethan sneered. It's a little late to play innocent. Your agent, Laura, sold stories about Anya's past to the gossip sites. Now Anya is being torn apart online. Are you going to tell me you had nothing to do with it? Aurora's expression changed. She immediately pulled out her phone and opened up her social media feed. Sure enough, the top trending topics were all about Bianca. People were calling her a homewrecker, and Bianca's account had been flooded with hate. She understood at once. Laura must have been terrified of losing her cash cow if she really terminated her contract, so she decided to get rid of Bianca as quickly as possible. I didn't. At the time Enough, Ethan cut her off sharply. Aurora, I'm warning you. Anya has depression. If anything happens to her because of this, I won't let the people who bullied her get away with it. With that, he turned to leave, as if his only purpose in coming was to threaten her. Aurora finally couldn't stop herself from calling out to him, her voice choked with emotion. Ethan, after all these years, is this really the kind of person you think I am? When he didn't answer, she understood everything. With red-rimmed eyes, she asked again if what they're saying about Bianca online is true, would you? I know exactly what kind of person Anya is. There were extenuating circumstances behind her marriage. I will not allow anyone to slander her. He strode away without another word. Tears finally streamed down Aurora's face. She had never seen Ethan believe in someone so fiercely. Chapter 6, Laura was fired. Ethan's decision to dismiss a veteran employee who had contributed so much to the company stunned everyone. Only Aurora knew why. Laura had touched Ethan's most vulnerable spot, and that vulnerable spot was named Bianca White. In his eyes, Aurora was the mastermind behind the whole plot, and he wasn't about to let her off the hook either. She didn't know how he would retaliate, until one day her assistant called her in a panic. Aurora, it's bad your photos have been leaked online. Aurora's heart sank. She immediately opened her social media. The headlines sent a chill through her entire body. They were photos from a business dinner she had been forced to attend while filming her last movie. Many powerful executives were there, and as the lead actress, she couldn't refuse a drink. After a few glasses, she had become a bit tipsy and stumbled, falling backward. One of the investors, an older executive, caught her. The photos were snapped at that exact moment. Due to the angle, it looked as though she were smiling seductively and throwing herself at the man. Aurora's knuckles turned white as she stared at the comments. The same netizens who had been attacking Bianca just days before had now turned their venom on her. Meanwhile, all the negative stories about Bianca had quietly disappeared. Aurora shot to her feet and rushed to the Star Ocean Entertainment Tower. It had been a long time since she had entered Ethan's office alone. The moment she saw him, tears threatened to spill from her eyes. Those photos of me. Did you release them? Ethan looked up at her and admitted it without hesitation. Yes, the situation with Anya was getting out of control. We couldn't just suppress it. We had to divert the public's attention with another story. So, you chose me? Aurora's heart ached. She thought that even if he didn't love her, he would at least grant her some basic dignity. Ethan's voice was cold. You owe this to Anya. Do you have any idea what you and Laura did to her? She almost had a relapse of her depression and tried to kill herself. Aurora's heart turned to ice. Mr. Harrison, you may not want to believe it, But before any of this happened, I was planning to terminate my contract. I never intended to compete with Bianca for anything. It's late now, but not too late. I am formally requesting to terminate my contract with Star Ocean Entertainment. I will pay the penalty fee in full. I hope you'll agree." At her words, Ethan's head snapped up. He narrowed his eyes. "You want to terminate your contract?" "Yes," he let out a cold laugh. "No." Before she could say anything else, he spoke first. "Aurora, as far as I know, you were an orphan. Even with the money you've saved over the years, you're nowhere near the penalty amount stipulated by Star Ocean. Besides, you seem to have forgotten that the contract you signed was a 10-year ironclad deal. Even if you paid 10 times the penalty, you couldn't break it. It's only been 3 years. Aurora, you still have 7 years of your life to sell to Star Ocean." Aurora's mind went blank. When she signed the contract, she loved him, trusted him. She hadn't even read the details carefully. How could she have known about a 10-year ironclad deal? Her lips trembled as a horrible realization dawned on her. "You did this on purpose?" On purpose. He knew Bianca would come back one day. He knew Aurora wouldn't be able to stand being a substitute and would want to leave. But by then, she would be an A-list star with significant resources. Losing her would be a huge loss for Star Ocean. Ethan looked up, seeing her teetering on the edge of collapse. A flicker of something unfamiliar crossed his mind, but he suppressed it coldly, turning the pen in his hand. "I am a businessman. It's only natural for me to pursue profit and avoid loss." What a line, "I am a businessman." Tears welled in Aurora's eyes, but she fought to keep them from falling. "Impressive, Mr. Harrison, to think you can even use emotions as a bargaining chip. Truly, impressive." With that, she ran out of the office. Chapter 7, with Aurora's scandal as a shield, the rumors about Bianca quickly died down. Aurora had a high standing in the entertainment industry. For years, she had maintained a spotless reputation, giving no one anything to criticize. But now, with a chink in her armor, the haters swarmed. The daily abuse she received was as vile as it could get. Someone had even gotten her phone number and would call to harass her daily. Worse, people started mailing her terrifying images. She was so frightened she could barely sleep at night. But even with all this, Ethan still wasn't done with her. "You're saying you want me to be the supporting actress in Bianca's new show?" In the main conference room at Star Ocean, Aurora stared at Ethan, who sat at the head of the table. Her voice was numb. Ethan nodded. "This fantasy drama has a budget of over $100 million. It's a key project for the company. You'll play the second female lead." Given her status, she hadn't taken a supporting role in years. Furthermore, she had always been a film actress. Making her play the second lead to Bianca in a fantasy drama, Ethan's intentions were crystal clear. He wanted to use her fame to boost Bianca's comeback. She shook her head. "I won't do it." Ethan's eyes grew cold. "Why not?" Aurora shook her head again. "I don't want to." Ethan stared at her coldly for a long moment. "Fine, I'll give you a few days to think about it." 3 days later, Aurora understood what he meant by think about it. He had halted all of her work. Commercials, endorsements, magazine shoots, even new film projects she was in talks for, everything was stopped. She was effectively semi-blacklisted. Her standing in the industry plummeted. Even at a charity gala, she couldn't escape trouble. Well, if it isn't the big star Aurora Kingsley. All alone, not busy shooting a movie, Aurora immediately recognized them. Zoe Miller and Serena Vance. They had debuted around the same time as Aurora. But while they were still playing minor roles in small productions, Aurora was already a shining star in leading roles. They had always been intensely jealous of her. Now that everyone in the industry knew about Aurora's situation at Star Ocean, they weren't about to miss an opportunity to kick her while she was down. As soon as Zoe's sarcastic comment landed, Serena chimed in, she'd need a movie to shoot first. "True. I heard Mr. Harrison dumped you. Some people just don't know their place. They think they can climb the ladder with their pretty face, but in the end, they're just a plaything to be tossed aside." Aurora had no desire to get entangled with them. As she tried to leave, Zoe grabbed her arm. "Where are your manners? I'm not done talking. Or is the great star looking for a new sponsor now that her old one is gone?" Aurora frowned and tried to shake her off, but Zoe's grip was surprisingly strong. In the ensuing scuffle, Zoe shoved her forward. Aurora stumbled into the crowd, knocking over a waiter's tray of red wine, which drenched her head. She fell forward, right into a male celebrity. Thump, the entire venue went silent. Aurora lay on the floor, tangled up with the man, her hair dripping with wine. Zoe walked over, sneering. Aurora, even if you're out of work, throwing yourself at someone in public like this, you're truly shameless. Whispers and pointed fingers immediately erupted around her. The male celebrity, remembering the online rumors, was furious. Fearing he'd be misunderstood, he shoved her away. Aurora, have you no shame? Chapter 8, Aurora fell back to the ground, blood beading from a scrape on her knee. She was surrounded by looks of mockery and disgust. She knew no one would listen to her explanation, no one would believe she was innocent. Just as she was preparing to silently get to her feet, a hand with long, elegant fingers appeared before her. She froze, slowly looking up. Above the immaculate suit was a handsome, unfamiliar face. Ryan Kingsley offered her a gentle smile and, in front of everyone, helped her up. Aurora never imagined someone would offer her a hand when she was at her lowest. The tears she had been holding back threatened to spill over. Ryan held her hand and addressed the crowd. You are all respectable people. Are you really going to stand by and bully a young woman like this? He looked gentle, but his words were sharp. No one dared to argue, not even the arrogant Zoe, who could only glare as Ryan led Aurora away. Wasn't that the young master of the Kingsley family? I heard he just came back from abroad. What? The Kingsley family? As in, the wealthiest family in the country. That Aurora is so lucky. First Ethan Harrison and now Ryan Kingsley. Outside the hotel, once Ryan had led her away, Aurora belatedly pulled her hand back. Thank you. Ryan's voice was deep, his manners impeccable, every inch the gentleman. You're welcome. Your name is Aurora, isn't it? I know who you are. Aurora looked up, confused. There was something strange about the way he looked at her, but she was certain they had never met. She pushed the odd feeling aside. Thank you for today, I should get going. With that, she turned to leave. Ryan watched her slender back recede. His eyes filled with a deep, unreadable emotion. Aurora limped down the street, a large bruise already forming on her knee. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation she had endured. She walked like a zombie, her body moving on autopilot. Suddenly, her phone rang. She pulled it out. It was Ethan. When she answered, his familiar, cool voice came through. Have you made up your mind? Aurora's voice was bitter. Ethan, can you really be this cruel to me? Ethan frowned. Acting is your job. Besides, with your reputation right now, even if you don't take this role, what other good scripts do you think you'll get? He was right. Her reputation had been all but destroyed by him. Her heart felt like ashes. When she spoke again, her voice was hoarse and numb. I just have one question. 3 years ago, on the day of my debut, when someone drugged my drink, why did you save me? Ethan paused, his mind flashing back to that night. He had only intended to pop into the private room to say hello. As he was leaving, he saw a tipsy Aurora struggling in the arms of an old man. It was just a glimpse of her back. But that one glimpse stopped him in his tracks. Her slender waist, her long, beautiful dark hair, it instantly reminded him of the person in his memory. There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Ethan's voice finally came through. You reminded me of Anya. Your back looked just like hers. Aurora suddenly laughed, a sound filled with utter despair. After a long moment, she looked at the setting sun on the horizon and spoke slowly. Fine, I'll do it. I'll take the role. Chapter 9, she hung up as soon as she said it. This, Aurora thought, was what she owed him, what she owed Bianca. If he saved her 3 years ago because of Bianca, then she would use this role to repay that debt. And once it was repaid, they would go their separate ways and never see each other again. The fantasy drama had been in preparation for a long time, though Bianca hadn't been the original choice for the lead. With all the pre-production work done and the cast finalized, filming could begin at any time. A major selling point of the show was its on-location shooting. On the first day, Aurora traveled with the crew to Mount Caelus near the capital city to film a battle scene between the immortal and demon realms. While the crew set up the scene, Aurora rested alone in a temporary tent. Suddenly, someone entered. She looked up and was surprised to see Ryan. Mr. Kingsley, what are you doing here? Ryan smiled and sat down beside her naturally. My company is an investor in this film. I'm here to check on things. So that was it. Aurora nodded and fell silent again. Ryan suddenly asked, I heard you're from Suzhou, is that right? Aurora looked at him warily. Ever since he appeared, Ryan had shown an inexplicable interest in her. "Don't get me wrong," Ryan said, his voice softening as he looked at her face. "It's just, you look like my sister, who was lost many years ago. She was sold by our family's enemies to someone in Suzhou." Aurora's eyes widened. Ryan then took out a photograph. It was a picture of Aurora as a child. "I've looked into it. You were sold to a couple in Suzhou. After they died in a car accident, you were sent to an orphanage. You have a heart-shaped birthmark on your left ankle, don't you? Actually, after the charity gala, I took a strand of your hair for a DNA test. The results came in today." Ryan looked at her, his expression serious. "Yanyan, you are my sister." Aurora was speechless, still reeling from the shock. Everything Ryan said was true. Her earliest memories, from the age of 3, were of the orphanage. She had never known who her birth parents were and had always assumed she'd been abandoned. But the truth was, she had been sold to Suzhou by her family's enemies. Are you sure? It's really me?" Ryan nodded. "I've checked all your records and everything matches. If you still don't believe it, we can do another paternity test. I came back to the country specifically to bring you home." "Bring me home?" "That's right. Yanyan, will you come back to America with me? Mom and Dad miss you so much." Aurora's mind was in turmoil. She shook her head instinctively. I can't go to America. I signed a 10-year ironclad contract with Star Ocean. For the next 10 years, unless I die, I can't go anywhere." Hearing this, a sharp glint appeared in Ryan's eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it came. He gently stroked Aurora's head. "Star Ocean is nothing. No one threatens a Kingsley. Don't worry. As long as you're willing to come home, your brother will take care of everything." An unknown amount of time later, Aurora was alone in the tent again. Ryan's words echoed in her mind. Suddenly, she had a family, a real brother. Life was so unpredictable. In just one day, she had gone from being a parentless orphan to the daughter of the wealthiest family in the capital. As she was lost in thought, she saw Bianca outside the tent, surrounded by a large entourage of assistants, making her way to the set. And among them, a familiar face appeared. Ethan. He really couldn't bear for Bianca to suffer even the slightest hardship. He had to personally escort her on the very first day of filming. A pang of pain shot through Aurora's chest. Her hands slowly clenched into fists. She had finally made a decision. 5 minutes later, Aurora walked into Bianca's tent. Bianca had gone to speak with the director, leaving Ethan alone inside. Seeing her, Ethan frowned. "What is it?" Aurora nodded and walked toward him. She reached up and unclasped the star-shaped necklace she always wore. It was the first gift he had ever given her, 3 years ago. Chapter 10, after unclasping it, Aurora held the necklace out to Ethan. "I'm giving it back." Ethan's dark eyes stared at the necklace in her palm. After a long moment, he asked coldly, "What is the meaning of this?" With tears in her eyes, Aurora placed the necklace on a nearby table. "From now on, we are truly done. Ethan, we were together for 3 years. Even though you never truly loved me, I really did love you. Every gift you ever gave me, big or small, I've cherished them all, but since they were never meant for me, I'm returning them to you." Ethan's voice was icy. "There's no need. I don't take back things I've given away." "Then throw it away," Aurora said softly. "Ethan, you were the first person in my entire life to ever be kind to me, so kind that I felt spending one lifetime by your side wasn't enough. I wanted to be with you in the next life, and the life after that. When you were unhappy, I'd cheer you up. When you were stressed with work or family, I would be at our home, cooking a meal, leaving a light on, so that you would always have a safe harbor to return to." Aurora thought she would cry, but her eyes were completely dry. Not a single tear would fall. Her heart had died the moment she learned he had only saved her because of Bianca. She took a deep breath. "But it doesn't matter, I've let go now." Ethan stared at her, at the long-absent smile on her face, and a strange flicker of panic went through him. He slowly parted his lips. Ethan, I don't love you anymore." Before he could finish, Aurora delivered her final words, simple and solemn. Then, without another glance, she turned and left the tent. Ethan stood frozen, a momentary bewilderment washing over him. He didn't understand the strange feeling in his heart. He didn't love Aurora, did he? Ethan clenched his fists, forcing the unsettling emotion down. Soon, the set was ready. Both Aurora and Bianca had changed into their period costumes. The first scene was supposed to feature Bianca as the female lead. It required her to jump from a mountaintop into the battle scene below. The cliff was steep, and even with a safety harness, Bianca was hesitant. "Director, is it dangerous?" "Miss White, you'll be in a harness. It's not dangerous. You just need to make the jumping motion, and we'll pull you right back up." But Bianca still refused. The director was growing frustrated, but with Ethan present, he didn't dare lose his temper at her. Seeing Aurora standing nearby, he said, "You go first then. The second female lead is the heroine's best friend. She'd be in the battle with her." Aurora glanced at the bottomless cliff, her own heart pounding, but she was in no position to refuse. She put on the harness. Ethan, sitting not far away, frowned but said nothing. Seeing Aurora's cooperation, the director's spirits lifted. He sat behind the camera and yelled, "Action!" Aurora got into character, reciting her lines while performing the choreographed magical gestures. Then came the leap. Her performance was full of emotion, her robes fluttering gracefully in the air. The director was very pleased and called, "Cut," but in the next second, a sharp, piercing snap echoed across the set. The crew member in charge of the harness paled and yelled, "Something's wrong, the harness is faulty. It's about to break." Everyone's face changed. Aurora, half of her body already dangling over the cliff, was terrified, her face ashen. She could feel the straps around her slowly loosening. "Aurora." She heard a familiar voice shout her name as someone rushed toward the cliff's edge. But before she could see who it was, the harness snapped completely. She lost her support and plummeted downwards. Chapter 11. "Aurora." Ethan sprinted towards the edge of the cliff, but before he could reach it, several crew members grabbed him and held him back. "Mr. Harrison, you can't go." "Mr. Harrison, it's dangerous." Ethan struggled desperately, but he could only watch in horror as Aurora's figure disappeared into the abyss. He wasn't sure if it was a trick of his mind, but he thought he saw a faint smile on her lips as she fell. It looked like she had said something, but he couldn't hear it. From the shape of her mouth, however, he could make out the words, "Ethan, goodbye forever." Seeing that Ethan had stopped struggling, the crew members let him go. The harness had snapped. Aurora had fallen. The sudden accident threw the entire set into chaos. The director shouted into a megaphone, "Team A, call the police. Team B, call for an ambulance. Team C, get the search and rescue team over here. Team D, send a few people down to the bottom of the cliff. We need to find her. Dead or alive, move, move, move." Ethan's legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees, his hands braced on the ground. He lowered his head and slammed his fist into the earth. It wasn't until a tear splashed onto the back of his hand that Ethan realized he was crying. Why was he crying? Was he shedding tears for Aurora's death? But he didn't love Aurora. But if he didn't love her, where were these tears, this trembling in his heart, coming from? Bianca walked over to Ethan's side. Peering down into the bottomless abyss, she recoiled in fear. She covered her mouth in shock, her voice trembling with terror. "Aurora, she just fell like that. From this high up, how could she possibly survive? If I had been the one on that harness, that would be me down there right now." "Ethan, I'm so scared." Bianca threw her arms around Ethan and began to cry prettily. Ethan held her, patting her back comfortingly. "Don't be afraid, Anya. We're not filming this movie anymore. I won't let anything happen to you." Bianca trembled in his arms, looking utterly terrified. "But this was supposed to be my comeback film. It's such a huge production, and you worked so hard to get me the lead role. Ethan, this is my chance. I don't want to give it up." Ethan considered for a moment before finally saying, "All right, I'll have the crew find a stunt double for you. You won't have to do any more dangerous scenes like this yourself. I can't lose you again." Hearing his words, Bianca hugged him tighter, her face streaked with tears. "Ethan, I'm so glad I have you. I don't know what I would do without you." Ethan stroked Bianca's hair, murmuring softly, "It's okay, Anya. I'll always be here for you." What Ethan didn't notice was the strange expression on the face of the woman in his arms. Bianca hadn't missed the word "again" in his sentence. What did he mean, "can't lose you again"? Was it because he had already lost Aurora, so now he absolutely couldn't lose her? Leaning against Ethan's chest, a cold light flashed in Bianca's eyes. "Aurora, everything you stole from me, I will take back, piece by piece. Now that you've fallen off a cliff, there's no way you survived. Let's see you try to compete with me now." Chapter 12. After composing himself, Ethan helped Bianca to her feet. She continued to lean on him, looking fragile and boneless, clearly shaken by the incident. At the end of the day, Aurora was still an artist under Star Ocean Entertainment. With such a major accident, the production crew was undeniably at fault. So, when the director saw Ethan, he hurried over. "Mr. Harrison, I am so sorry. We never imagined there would be a problem with the harness. I've sent people to search the bottom of the cliff, and I've already contacted the police and the hospital. We'll begin rescue efforts the moment Miss Kingsley is found." Ethan sneered, his voice sharp. "Since you chose to shoot on location, especially in a dangerous place like a cliff, you should have ensured all safety measures were secure. Did not a single person from your crew inspect the harness before Aurora went up? If it had been checked, would this have happened?" Ethan rarely spoke with such severity. Faced with his fury, the director could only offer repeated apologies. "Mr. Harrison, I'm truly sorry. This was an oversight on our part. Normally, we use only the best safety equipment. Besides, Aurora is so slender. Under normal circumstances, the harness should never have broken. We can't rule out human factors. In my 20 years in this industry, I've never encountered such a terrible incident. Mr. Harrison, rest assured, I will give you a full account of what happened." As if not wanting to speak with the director any longer, Bianca quickly said, "Ethan, I want to go back and rest." Ethan's voice softened. "Okay, I'll take you back now." The director said, "Mr. Harrison, Miss White, please go back to the hotel and rest. I'll have someone notify you as soon as we have any results." Ethan didn't reply, simply putting his arm around Bianca and walking toward the parking area. Back at the hotel, Bianca used the excuse of needing to be alone and went to her own room. Ethan watched with a worried expression until her figure disappeared from sight. Then he took out his phone and made a call. What he didn't know was that as soon as Bianca was inside her room, the pitiful expression vanished from her face, and she also made a call. The moment the call connected, Bianca anxiously confirmed, "How is it? Are you sure no one saw anything? The director just said he suspects the accident was deliberate." A smug male voice came from the other end. "Don't you worry, Miss White. I hacked all the surveillance cameras in the equipment room. Plus, we were so discreet, no one will find any evidence." Bianca's voice was cold. "It had better be just as you say." Meanwhile, Ethan had left the hotel and driven back to the cliff where Aurora had fallen. A fog had rolled in. The cliff was so high that when Ethan looked down, all he could see was a vast expanse of white, and his heart clenched with fear. Aurora, was there really any chance she was still alive? As Ethan stood there, lost in thought, several tall men in police uniforms approached to clear the area. "A storm is coming. All non-essential personnel, please leave the scene immediately. Thank you for your cooperation." Ethan walked up to them and asked, "Is there any news about Aurora? How is she?" A police officer looked him over and replied, "We have no news on Miss Kingsley at the moment, but we've contacted the search and rescue team at the base of the mountain. We should have an update soon." Ethan nodded eagerly. "Okay, please let me know as soon as you hear anything." The mountain was extremely high, with no cable car and treacherous roads. The drive down from the summit would take 1 or 2 hours, so they had no choice but to wait at the top for news. The lead officer nodded. "You're a family member of Aurora's, correct? While we can't confirm her condition yet, I have to tell you that it's highly unlikely she can be rescued. This mountain is very high, and the cliff face is mostly sheer rock with little vegetation. The survival rate for a fall like this is close to 0. Please prepare for the worst." Chapter 13, hearing the officer's words, Ethan stumbled back, nearly losing his footing. A wave of unfamiliar horror washed over him. He couldn't understand why the news of Aurora's death would cause him such intense pain. Just then, the sky opened up, and a torrential downpour soaked him to the bone. A police officer quickly handed him an umbrella and patted his shoulder. "Sir, you should head back. This rain is too heavy. It's easy to slip and fall off the cliff." Ethan didn't know how he got back to the hotel. Once there, he uncharacteristically didn't go to see Bianca. Instead, he went straight to his own room. He sat numbly on the bed, and soon, a large wet patch formed on the covers from his drenched clothes. The rain had made his clothes cling uncomfortably to his skin, but Ethan, normally so particular about cleanliness, didn't rush to shower. He just sat there, motionless on the edge of the bed, until night fell. The storm raged all night, and Ethan sat there all night, not even changing his position, as if his soul had been drained from his body. The rain gradually subsided. As the first ray of sunlight pierced through the clouds, the night-long storm finally ceased. At 9 a.m, Ethan's phone rang, but he seemed not to hear it. It wasn't until the second time it rang that he slowly, belatedly, answered. The moment he picked up, the voice of yesterday's police officer came through the phone. "Hello, is this Mr. Ethan Harrison? This is the officer from yesterday. I'm calling to inform you that we found bloodstains and some human tissue at the base of the cliff. After analysis, we've confirmed a DNA match with Miss Aurora Kingsley. Our preliminary assessment is that Miss Kingsley's body was not intact after the fall. Combined with last night's heavy rain, the scene was severely compromised, so the evidence is limited." Ethan's grip on the phone tightened, his voice trembling. "Officer, what are you trying to say? I don't understand." There was a pause on the other end, and the officer's voice grew somber. "To put it simply, Aurora fell and was torn to pieces. Her remains were washed away by the storm and cannot be found. We found residual bloodstains on the rocks, confirming this is the area where she landed. Mr. Harrison, I regret to inform you that based on a joint assessment by the police, the search and rescue team, and the emergency medical team, we have confirmed that Miss Aurora Kingsley died on impact. Please accept our deepest condolences." The phone fell from Ethan's hand as a dial tone buzzed from the other end. It landed on the carpet with a muffled thud. Ethan ran his hands through his hair several times before finally breaking down. He stumbled into the bathroom, turned on the shower, and let the cold water drench him completely. He stripped off his wrinkled clothes, washing away the mud and grime. He couldn't tell if the water on his face was from the shower or from his own tears. When Ethan emerged in a bathrobe, there was a knock on his door. He opened it with a wooden expression to find Bianca, dressed to the nines with perfect makeup. Her long, wavy hair, the style Ethan had always loved, cascaded over her shoulders. But now, the sight of it was like a knife in his heart. Bianca didn't notice his strange expression. She linked her arm through his affectionately. "Ethan, the weather is beautiful today. Since we're not filming, will you take me out?" Ethan stared at her but said nothing. Bianca's face was as beautiful as ever, just like he remembered. And she was back by his side, as if everything had returned to how it was before he ever met Aurora. Everything was back to the beginning. Ethan should have been happy, but for some reason, he couldn't feel an ounce of joy. Just then, his phone rang again. He pulled his arm free from Bianca's grasp, walked quickly to the bed, and picked up his phone from the carpet. It was the director. Hello, Mr. Harrison, you need to come to the set right away. We've found the person responsible for the accident." Chapter 14, hearing the director's words, Ethan immediately replied, "Okay, I'm on my way." As soon as he hung up, Ethan took off his bathrobe and pulled a white shirt from the closet. Ethan had an excellent physique, lean but muscular, especially his chest and abs. Bianca usually loved looking at his body, but now, as he changed in front of her, she had no desire to admire it. The hotel room was quiet, so Bianca had heard most of the director's call. They found the culprit. Didn't he say no one would find out? Had he found a scapegoat? In their circle, it wasn't unheard of to pay someone to take the fall to protect one's reputation. Reassuring herself with this thought, Bianca suppressed her anxiety and followed Ethan out the door. "Ethan, I want to go with you." Ethan didn't say much, just a quiet. Bianca settled into the passenger seat and finally dared to voice her question. "Ethan, Miss Kingsley, she didn't make it, did she?" Ethan didn't answer, but the speed at which the car shot forward gave her the answer. Aurora was really dead. The car sped along, and in just a few minutes, Ethan had brought Bianca to the set. He slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching against the pavement. Ethan practically ran onto the set. He saw the director surrounded by a crowd, along with several police officers. He quickened his pace. "What's going on? Was it deliberate? Who's the culprit?" When the director saw Ethan, he made way for him. They were gathered around a computer, watching a surveillance video. The footage showed a strange man, disguised as a crew member, tampering with the harness in the equipment room the day before. The man was clearly a professional. The tampering was so subtle that it went unnoticed during the crew's morning inspection. It was only when Aurora was suspended by the harness that the weakness became apparent. But by then, it was too late. Dangling in midair, Aurora couldn't be pulled back in time. The harness snapped and she fell. To maintain the aesthetic of the on-location shoot, the crew hadn't set up a secondary safety measure. The lighting in the video wasn't great, but it was clear enough to see someone sabotaging the harness. Ethan slammed his fist on the table. "Have you found the killer? The police have identified a suspect and are on their way to apprehend him." Just as he finished speaking, 2 police officers entered, escorting a man in black. Bianca, standing at the edge of the crowd, was the first to see him. The moment she laid eyes on him, her face went white. It was the same man she had spoken to on the phone yesterday. He had said he'd hacked all the surveillance footage, so where did this video come from? As if hearing her thoughts, the director looked at the man being brought in. "Did you really think hacking our warehouse cameras would make you untouchable? I might as well tell you now. All the equipment in our production is very expensive, so I had a backup camera installed in the warehouse. The moment the main system goes down, the backup kicks in. And the backup camera has a much better angle than the original, capturing your face perfectly. How does it feel? Outsmarted by your own cleverness, huh? Talk, why did you do it?" The man in black sneered and looked past the crowd to a trembling Bianca. "What motive could I have? Someone paid me a lot of money to do a job. The problem is, I never received the final payment. Otherwise, you wouldn't have caught me." Ethan noticed the man's gaze on Bianca. He strode forward and grabbed the man by the collar. "Who was behind this? Tell me." Ethan's fist was practically in the man's face, but there was no fear in his eyes. He met Ethan's gaze and suddenly laughed. Ethan tightened his grip on the man's neck. "What are you laughing at? Spit it out." The man coughed a few times. "What am I laughing at? I'm laughing at you, playing dumb when you know the truth. Laughing that you have such a big head on your shoulders, but can't even figure out who benefits most from this." Ethan squeezed harder. "Stop with the riddles. Who hired you? Who else? Your dear little girlfriend, Bianca White." Chapter 15. Ethan looked as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. He let go of the man and stumbled back, but the man wasn't finished. "Mr. Harrison, have you ever heard the term femme fatale? All those rumors about Bianca online, they were all true. I was the one who helped her scrub those scandals from the internet. I have even juicier stuff, Mr. Harrison. Interested? The prettier the woman, the better she lies. Be careful, Mr. Harrison. One day, you might lose your own life to this Bianca White." "Enough, stop talking," Ethan roared. He pushed through the crowd and stood before Bianca. "Anya, what he's saying isn't true, is it?" Ethan searched her face for a trace of anger, anything to prove the man's words were lies. But there was none. She was trembling, her face pale and bloodless. Seeing her reaction, Ethan's heart sank. He didn't need to ask anymore. He had his answer. As much as he had loved Bianca, he knew her just as well. Her reaction was a confession. Ethan waved his hand dismissively. "Since you have both the witness and the evidence, hand them over to the police. Let them be dealt with according to the law." At his words, 2 officers stepped forward and placed handcuffs on Bianca. As they led her away, she seemed to snap out of her shock, struggling and screaming, "Ethan, save me, it's not like that, it's not." But a slender woman like her was no match for the police. Her cries faded into the distance, but Ethan never once turned around. The crowd dispersed. The director approached him. "Mr. Harrison, now that we've lost both the lead and supporting actress, what about the show?" Ethan rubbed his temples, his face weary. "Go back to the original choice for the lead. As for the second lead, you decide." Bianca had been begging to star in this fantasy drama as her comeback role. Worn down by her persistence, Ethan had invested heavily in the production, his only condition being that the lead and supporting roles be given to Bianca and Aurora. Aurora had been right. He had intended to use her popularity to boost Bianca's career. But now, he had lost everything. He had never imagined that Aurora would die on set, her body washed away by a storm. And he had never imagined that Bianca, the woman he had cherished as his one true love, could have such an ugly soul beneath her beautiful exterior. So, all those rumors that she had broken up a marriage, used a pregnancy to secure her position, and had been kicked out of a wealthy family before coming back to him, they were all true. Ethan couldn't accept it, or rather, he didn't want to believe it. The girl who had once been so perfect in his memory had become this person. Or perhaps this was who she had been all along. Ethan tried to recall his memories with Bianca, only to find his mind filled with images of Aurora. Chapter 16, to say Aurora was merely a substitute for Bianca wasn't entirely accurate. Because besides their long, beautiful, raven hair, Aurora and Bianca had nothing in common. They didn't look alike. Aurora's hair was naturally wavy, while Bianca's was straight. Aurora's flowing, wavy hair was far more beautiful than Bianca's. Aurora had delicate features and fair skin. Every smile, every glance was utterly captivating. She looked like an exquisite porcelain doll, evoking a sense of tenderness in anyone who saw her. Otherwise, she never would have shot to fame right after her debut based on her looks alone. With her immense popularity came a flood of criticism. People criticized her for everything: her acting, her singing, her public speaking, but no one ever said she wasn't beautiful. Combined with her stunning hair, her fans had given her a loving nickname, the Mermaid Princess. Bianca's looks, however, were less remarkable, and in the 3 years she had been abroad, she had gotten work done on her face, making her expressions seem less natural than before. Ethan's affection for her was merely a replica of his memories. The 3 years with Aurora had been like a beautiful dream Ethan had woven for himself. To the outside world, she was the A-list superstar who brought him immense commercial value. But to him, she was the little princess who only showed her playful side to him, his secret girlfriend. Ethan had always believed he had no feelings for Aurora. He loved her appearance, her wavy hair, but not the person herself. It wasn't until Bianca returned, until the passion of their reunion faded, that Ethan finally realized he had fallen in love with Aurora herself. He loved her charm, her mesmerizing eyes, everything about her. Aurora had grown up in an orphanage, moving between several, and had always lacked a sense of security. Because of this, what she wanted most was a home. So Ethan bought her an apartment and a villa. Both were decorated exactly to her vision of a perfect home. He had showered her with affection. He had just always told himself he was doing it because he saw her as Bianca. But now, having lost her, Ethan realized that in his heart, he had long since separated the two women. If Bianca had once been the white moonlight of his heart, then Aurora was the unforgettable cinnabar mole, forever imprinted on his soul. After everything was settled, Ethan drove down from Mount Caelus that night. He returned to the villa, a place filled with memories of him and Aurora. The moment he opened the door, the memories came rushing back. He could almost see Aurora standing at the door, a bright smile on her face, waiting for him to come home. He could see her curled up on the sofa, having fallen asleep while waiting. He could see her busy in the kitchen. He could see her, her eyes red, asking him why he hadn't come home the night before. But the final memory was of that beautiful, terrifying cliff. Aurora, dressed in a flowing white gown, falling from the highest point. She was smiling, without a trace of fear. She had said Ethan goodbye forever. His Anya gone like a wisp of smoke. She left him without a trace, but carved scars deep into his heart. Chapter 17, although the news of Aurora's fall was quickly suppressed by the production crew and Star Ocean Entertainment, it still leaked. As an A-list actress, Aurora had a massive fanbase. Her fans flooded the social media pages of the production company and Star Ocean, demanding an explanation. To appease them, Star Ocean Entertainment officially announced Aurora's death on their public channels, stating that the incident was a deliberate act and naming the culprit. The news shocked fans and the public alike. When it was revealed that Bianca White was the mastermind, the backlash against her was immediate and brutal. But Bianca was already in prison for intentional homicide, and the court of public opinion no longer mattered to her. The fantasy drama had recast both the female lead and supporting roles and had resumed filming. Everything seemed to have returned to normal, but Ethan had since resigned as the president of Star Ocean Entertainment. He found he no longer had the courage to step inside the Star Ocean Tower. Aurora had signed a 10-year ironclad contract with the company. The reason Ethan had insisted on such a harsh contract was because he saw her potential and wanted her to create as much value as possible for him. After all, from the beginning, he had defined their relationship as that of a businessman and his product. But he never expected that in just 3 years, he, the shrewd businessman, would not only fall in love with his best product, but also watch as that product's life was destroyed. From then on, Ethan became a recluse, shutting himself in his house day and night, living only with his memories of Aurora. Meanwhile, Aurora's fans held spontaneous memorials, both online and offline. The most beautiful mermaid princess of their memories was gone forever. 3 months passed quickly. In the fast-paced world of information, the death of A-list actress Aurora Kingsley was slowly being forgotten. No one could have imagined that today was the day Aurora was being discharged from a high-end private hospital. As it turned out, after learning about the 10-year ironclad contract, Ryan had been searching for a way to free Aurora. But Star Ocean Entertainment, as the country's largest entertainment company, was notoriously cunning. Ryan had reviewed the contract between Star Ocean and Aurora multiple times, but couldn't find a single loophole. But where there's a will, there's a way. Soon, the people Ryan had placed in the film crew to protect Aurora noticed something was off with Bianca. Because Aurora had been abducted by his family's enemies as a child, Ryan had arranged for discreet protection for her the moment he confirmed her identity, determined not to let tragedy strike again. So, when Bianca contacted the hitman on set, Ryan's people discovered it immediately. But when Ryan heard that Bianca was planning to harm Aurora, he didn't stop it right away. Listening to his subordinate's report, Ryan sat at his desk, remembering what Aurora had told him. "I signed a 10-year ironclad contract with Star Ocean. For the next 10 years, unless I die, I can't go anywhere." Ryan tapped his index finger on the desk. Unless she dies, she can't go anywhere. A plan began to form in his mind. He smirked. "Ethan Harrison, you played dirty, so don't blame me for doing the same. You signed her to a 10-year death contract just to squeeze every last drop of value out of her. Is that it? Fine then. A death is what you'll get." Chapter 18. In the end, Ryan chose to play along with Bianca's scheme, using her own plot to help Aurora stage a perfect escape. This way, the ironclad contract between Aurora and Star Ocean would be voided. It would also ensure that Bianca faced the consequences for her actions. She had to pay the price. After learning that Bianca planned to tamper with the harness, Ryan, while shocked by her viciousness, immediately began to set his own plan in motion. During this time, he met with Aurora and told her, "Yanyan, no matter what happens, don't be afraid. Your brother and the Kingsley family will always protect you." Fearing that knowing the truth might interfere with their plan, Ryan didn't tell Aurora the details. Although she didn't fully understand the meaning behind his words, she nodded obediently. With Bianca's plan in motion, Ryan's team began preparing for the aftermath. They set up multiple layers of safety measures in the area where Aurora was expected to fall, ensuring her survival. The moment the harness snapped, Aurora was terrified. She thought she was going to die. With a bottomless abyss below her, how could she possibly survive? But she never expected that in the instant she fell, she would see Ethan running toward her. So, he did care whether she lived or died. Did that mean he wasn't completely without feelings for her? A relieved smile touched Aurora's lips. She calmly said her goodbyes to Ethan, then closed her eyes, ready for death. But she hadn't fallen far when she felt a giant net catch her. Aurora's eyes shot open. She was no longer falling. She was saved. Before she could feel relieved, the net broke under the strain. She fell through several more large nets before finally spotting a cave. Ryan and his team, who had been waiting there, quickly pulled her to safety. Ryan had gone to great lengths to ensure her safety, but Aurora still ended up with a broken rib. He took her to a private hospital funded by the Kingsley Group. The hospital was highly secure and guaranteed patient privacy. Thanks to the swift actions of Ryan's team, no one outside their circle knew she was there. Ryan had already taken blood from Aurora's wound and smeared it on the rocks at the bottom of the cliff, creating the illusion of a fatal fall. The subsequent storm washed away any remaining evidence, completing her perfect escape. During her recovery, Aurora felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. There were no more grueling schedules to keep, no more days spent revolving around Ethan. Other than her prescribed physical therapy and treatment, her time was her own. She even saw the news report announcing her own death on television. Watching it, Aurora found it both amusing and brilliant. Ryan's plan was masterful. The news was now reporting that the contract between Aurora Kingsley and Star Ocean Entertainment had been automatically terminated. She looked at Ryan, who was diligently peeling an apple for her by her bedside, and felt a genuine sense of admiration. Brother, your escape plan was truly brilliant. Now everyone thinks I'm dead. So, legally and in every other sense, the 10-year ironclad contract between me and Ethan is gone. Finally, I'm no longer under his control. When I loved him, I was willing to do anything for him, for Star Ocean. But from now on, I'm going to live for myself. Chapter 19. Once Aurora had fully recovered and was discharged from the hospital, Ryan immediately took her on a private jet to the United States to reunite with their parents, Charles and Alina Kingsley. Aurora's knowledge of the Kingsley family was limited to the fact that they were the wealthiest family in the capital. While Ethan, with his massive entertainment empire, was rich, he was nothing compared to the Kingsleys. When Ryan and Aurora were very young, the Kingsley family had relocated abroad for business. Although they had moved their headquarters, Charles and Alina had never given up the search for their daughter. Losing their 3-year-old daughter due to a moment of carelessness had been a source of lifelong pain for them. So, for years, despite the slim hope, they never stopped looking. Working with the police, they revisited the kidnapping case and discovered that Aurora had been trafficked all the way to Suzhou. This was a major breakthrough. After years of investigation, the police finally found 2 buyers who had secretly purchased Aurora from the traffickers. But less than a month later, the couple died in a car accident, and Aurora was sent to an orphanage in Suzhou, where she grew up. In the orphanage, Aurora's beauty caught the attention of a philanthropist who sponsored her education. With her sponsor's help, Aurora was accepted into the capital's top film academy, which led to her debut after graduation. However, the small company that signed her was only interested in her looks and planned to send her to dinner parties to entertain clients, with no intention of providing the resources they had promised. That was how she had been saved by Ethan. He had dealt with the lecherous man, rescued her from the clutches of the unscrupulous company, and brought her to Star Ocean Entertainment. She had stayed there for 3 years until now. Sitting on the Kingsley family's private jet, Aurora reflected on the first half of her life. She had once believed that all the hardships she had endured were to accumulate enough good luck to meet Ethan, the most important person in her life. But now, she realized that meeting Ethan had been her greatest misfortune. But things were better now. She had found her family and had completely severed all ties with him. She hadn't been abandoned by her parents. It was because of someone else's evil that she had been separated from her family for so many years. She had a home after all. Seeing Aurora staring out the window, lost in thought, Ryan asked curiously, "Yanyan, what are you thinking about?" Hearing her name, Aurora turned and smiled softly. "Nothing, it just feels a little surreal, to think that I have a family too. Brother, did you know? I grew up in an orphanage. Even though all the kids grew up together, we weren't that close. Because someone was sponsoring me, a lot of the other kids bullied and isolated me. So, I just studied as hard as I could to escape that hellish place. When I finally got into university, I worked part-time and managed to save a little money. Then, I finally signed with a company and got a chance to debut, only to be drugged on my very first day. It was Ethan who saved me. Brother, I know you want to ask me why I loved him so much. It's because, to me, Ethan was like an angel who fell from the sky. He pulled me out of the mire. In my short and long life, he was the first person who ever made me feel loved and warm. Chapter 20, Ethan knew how much I wanted a home, so he bought an apartment for me. Everything inside was decorated and arranged according to my tastes. He told me that was my home. I know that dating the president of the company would cause a lot of controversy. A lot of people looked down on our relationship, thinking I was a kept woman, that I was using him to get ahead. But I never cared what others thought of me. All I ever wanted was a home and love, and I got both from him. So, for those 3 years, Ethan was my entire world. I was willing to do anything for him. But I never imagined he was just using me as a substitute, that he tricked me into signing that ironclad contract. So, I was fooled once again. By this point, tears were streaming down Aurora's face. Ryan's face was full of sympathy. He pulled her into a hug. "Yanyan, it's okay. Everything is better now. I'm taking you home. From now on, Mom, Dad, and I will love you doubly. You will never lose your home or love again." Aurora hugged him tightly, her voice choked. "Brother, you and Mom and Dad will never leave me, right?" Tears welled in Ryan's eyes as well. He stroked her head and promised, Yes, we will never leave you. We will always be your strongest support. Yan, don't cry. From now on, your brother won't let you suffer even the slightest grievance. Aurora had been shocked to see that Ryan had a private jet. But now, as the jet landed on the helipad of the Kingsley estate, she was truly stunned. As the plane was descending, she had looked down and gasped. The entire sprawling estate belonged to her family. She had never truly grasped the concept of being the wealthiest family. In her mind, it just meant they were very rich. But now, standing on an estate with a massive helipad, she finally understood the weight of those words. Seeing her astonished expression, Ryan couldn't help but smile. He took her hand and led her off the helipad. Yan, from now on, you're the mistress of this house. Everything in this estate belongs to the Kingsley family, which means it all belongs to you. If you want anything, just tell your brother. As an A-list actress, Aurora had earned a lot of money over the past 3 years. But with the death of her identity, all that money was frozen in the bank. She had written a will long ago, stating that if she died, all her assets were to be donated to charity. Now that Aurora Kingsley was legally dead, her fortune would be donated as she wished. This was her greatest comfort. She couldn't bear the thought of all her hard-earned money ending up in Ethan's hands. The Kingsley estate was so large that after leaving the helipad, Ryan led her to a vehicle similar to an airport shuttle. Seeing her dumbfounded expression, Ryan found it endearing. Yan, you'll have to get used to it. This is just the Kingsley style. He couldn't find the right word, but Aurora finished for him, exasperated. Outrageously, inhumanly rich, Ryan burst out laughing. What can I say? The helipad is too far from the villa. It's more convenient to drive, and Mom and Dad are getting impatient. They've already called me a dozen times on the way here. At the mention of their parents, Aurora grew nervous, clenching her fists. She wondered what they would be like. She was nervous, but also excited. Although Ryan had arranged for her to video chat with them while she was in the hospital, seeing them online was different from living with them day to day. Ryan noticed her anxiety and placed his hand over hers. Yan, don't be nervous. Mom and Dad are very easy to get along with. They miss you so much. Aurora nodded. After a 5-minute drive through the estate, the vehicle finally stopped in front of a massive villa. Aurora took Ryan's hand and stepped out. She looked at the magnificent mansion, took a deep breath, and prepared to finally meet her parents. Whoosh, the villa doors swung open. 2 rows of maids in uniform stood at the entrance, their hands clasped in front of them. They bowed slightly and said in unison, "Welcome home, Miss Young Master." Chapter 21, the grand display startled Aurora. Before she could react, a beautiful woman and a tall man walked out of the villa. It was Eleanor and Charles Kingsley. Eleanor ignored her son and walked straight to Aurora, taking her hands. The moment she saw Aurora, tears welled up in her eyes. "Yan, my child, you're finally home." "Mom!" Aurora looked at the beautiful woman before her, and the word came out instinctively. Hearing this, Eleanor broke down completely. She repeated "yes" several times before pulling Aurora into a tight hug, her voice choked. "Yes, yes, my good girl. It's good that you're back, it's good. I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime." Eleanor's warm embrace made Aurora feel, for the first time, the emotions of motherly love and family. Perhaps it was a mother-daughter connection, but she felt a natural warmth from Eleanor that was irresistibly moving. Aurora cried too, hugging her mother back. "Mom, I'm back. It's so good to see you all. I really do have a family." Hearing this, Eleanor cried even harder. "Yan, I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. I didn't watch over you properly, and I let those bad people take you away." "Mom, it's not your fault. It was their fault." The mother and daughter wept in each other's arms at the doorway. Seeing this, Ryan and Charles also had tears in their eyes. Just as the scene was about to become overwhelming, Ryan stepped in to mediate. He gently hugged them both. "All right, Mom, Yan, let's not stand here crying at the door. Let's go inside and eat." At his words, Eleanor quickly wiped her tears and took Aurora's hands. "Yes, Yan, you and Ryan have been traveling all day. You must be starving. I made a huge feast for you. I didn't know what you like to eat, so I made a lot of things. Come inside and try them." Aurora smiled. "Okay, I'll love anything you made, Mom." Hearing this, Eleanor's expression finally brightened into a smile. "See, Yan is so sweet. Not like your brother, who only knows how to eat." Ryan, caught in the crossfire, threw up his hands in mock despair. Well, it looks like with my sister back, I have no status in this family anymore. Eleanor shot him a look. You never had any to begin with, Aurora laughed. All right, let's go eat. As they walked, Aurora noticed Charles, who had been standing a few feet away, watching them. He was a man of few words, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. Time seemed to have left few marks on his handsome face. Aurora stopped in front of him and gave him a hug. Dad. Charles's embrace was warm and strong, making her feel safe. He stroked her head and said with emotion, Our Yanyan is all grown up. It's good to have you back. Aurora saw a hint of moisture in his eyes as well. She wiped the tears from her own. Dad, Mom, brother, from now on, our family of 4 will never be separated again. Chapter 22, having already been stunned by the luxury of the Kingsley estate, Aurora was fully prepared for what she would find inside the villa. Eleanor led her to the dining table and immediately ladled a bowl of soup for her. It was early winter in America, and nothing was more comforting than a bowl of hot soup. Eleanor carefully placed the bowl in front of her and handed her a spoon, her face full of anticipation. Yanyan, try Mom's soup. I've been simmering it all afternoon. Aurora took a spoonful and smiled. It's delicious, Mom. The winter in America seemed especially cold this year. Aurora had a naturally cold constitution, and after so many years in the orphanage, she had always dreaded the winter. Some people loved winter. It had Halloween, Christmas, hot turkey, and bread, snow, and plum blossoms. You could have bubbling hot pot, curl up in a warm bed with a book, go skiing, ice skating, have snowball fights, or even go ice fishing. These were joys unique to winter, but those who loved winter were never poor. For the poor, winter was a deadly season. Its biting cold could steal your life without you even noticing. The poor always wished winter would come later, or better yet, never at all. But this winter, Aurora was no longer afraid. She had a real home, a real family. From now on, she would never fear the cold again. The love and warmth of her family would be enough to get her through every winter. That night, Aurora, Ryan, Eleanor, and Charles talked for a long time. It was mostly Eleanor asking questions and Aurora answering, with Ryan and Charles listening quietly. The 3 of them were desperate to learn about the more than 2 decades of Aurora's life they had missed. After discovering she was their long-lost daughter, Eleanor had found every interview and film Aurora had made in her 3-year career and watched them over and over, often with Ryan and Charles. They were proud to see that even without their guidance, Aurora had grown into a strong, independent woman. When they learned what she had endured with Ethan, they were both angry and heartbroken. Eleanor, in particular, wanted to march right back and demand an explanation from him. Her beautiful, talented daughter had been treated as a substitute for another woman. Eleanor couldn't accept it. In the end, it was Aurora who stopped her. Mom, please don't be angry. In Ethan's mind, I'm already dead. I don't want to have any more contact with him. Just let him think I'm gone. Besides, at the end of the day, I do have to thank him for saving me from that terrible situation 3 years ago. Aurora's reasoning was sound, so Eleanor had to let it go. She lovingly stroked Aurora's face. Yanyan, you are such a kind and understanding girl. From now on, I will never let you suffer even the slightest bit of injustice again. After the long dinner, Eleanor excitedly led Aurora to the room prepared for her. Before opening the door, she said mysteriously, Yanyan, I watched all your interviews and wrote down all your likes and your descriptions of a dream home. I don't know if I got it right, but I tried my best to decorate it just the way you described. I'm still worried you won't like it, but if you don't, that's okay, just tell me what you want to change or add. Eleanor's words brought tears to Aurora's eyes again. It had been so long since anyone had treated her with such care. Was this what having a family felt like? Eleanor opened the door. Aurora looked inside and saw that the entire room was decorated in her favorite shades of purple. It was even more beautiful than the rooms she had decorated for herself. In every corner, she could see the love and effort Eleanor had put into it. Aurora gave her mother a big hug and smiled. Mom, thank you. I love it. Late that night, Aurora lay in her own big bed, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. From this moment on, she was no longer Aurora Kingsley. She was the daughter of the Kingsley family, Aurora Yanyan Kingsley. Chapter 23, the next morning, Aurora woke up early and looked like she was about to go out. Eleanor, who was just coming downstairs, saw her and asked, Yanyan, where are you going? Aurora turned back. "Mom, I want to get my hair cut." Eleanor came over and gently lifted a strand of Aurora's long, wavy hair. Such beautiful hair, it would be a shame to cut it. But Aurora was determined. Her voice was firm. "Mom, long hair was Aurora Kingsley's signature. And it was because of this hair that Ethan saw me as a substitute for Bianca. In the 3 years I was with him, he loved my hair more than anything. He never let me dye it, perm it, or even think about cutting it. I was under his thumb for 3 years. But now that I'm back with my family, I'm free. The first thing I want to do is cut my hair short to symbolize a new beginning." Eleanor stroked her daughter's head lovingly. "In that case, do whatever you want, Yanyan. But you don't have to go out for a haircut. The Kingsley family has its own stylist. I'll have Mrs. Luo contact her. You just wait here at home." Aurora nodded, came back from the entrance, and sat down at the dining table to have breakfast with her mother. Having breakfast with her daughter for the first time, Eleanor was overwhelmed with emotion. Aurora was 25 this year. After being abducted at the age of 3, they had missed 22 years of her life. It was just an ordinary breakfast, but Eleanor ate with tears in her eyes. Aurora understood what her mother was thinking. She placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mom, don't cry. We have a long future ahead of us. There's no need to regret the time we missed. We have many more years to spend together." Eleanor hugged her back and nodded with a smile. Within an hour, the Kingsley family's personal stylist arrived. Her name was Vivian, a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. Vivian ran her fingers through Aurora's soft, shiny hair and exclaimed, "Oh my goodness, Miss Kingsley, your hair is incredible. I've been a stylist for 10 years and worked on so many people, and your hair is easily one of the best I've ever seen. How do you take care of it? Can you share your secret?" Aurora blushed at the compliment. "I don't really do anything special, but I've never permed or dyed it, so maybe that's why." Vivian nodded, gathering the waist-length hair in her hands. She asked playfully, "Is a broken heart the reason for cutting off such beautiful hair? A lot of people cut their hair short after a breakup." The question hit close to home, but Aurora wasn't offended. She just smiled. "You could say that. Cutting off long hair symbolizes a new beginning." Aurora told Vivian she trusted her skills and gave her free rein. In the end, Vivian cut Aurora's waist-length hair to just above her shoulder blades and gave her soft, wispy bangs, which made her look younger. Aurora looked at the short-haired girl in the mirror and felt an unprecedented sense of lightness. It was just a haircut, but through the reflection, she saw a brand new life. She was no longer the little woman who revolved around Ethan, happy when he was happy, sad when he was sad. The old Aurora had been like a puppet on his strings, but that life was over. From now on, her life was full of infinite possibilities. Chapter 24, returning to the Kingsley family, Aurora felt a sense of security she had never experienced before. She spent 2 months at home, recovering and traveling with Eleanor and Ryan. The culture and customs in America were very different from her home country, but Aurora, despite being there for the first time, found that she loved it. When Ryan wasn't busy, he would take her to parties or on outdoor adventures. On weekends, the family of 4 would have barbecues in the yard, enjoying a leisurely life. But in her 25 years, Aurora had developed a restless nature. After 2 months of relaxation, she began to think about continuing her education. Her decision to attend film school hadn't just been because of her looks. Beauty was actually one of her least remarkable qualities. Aurora had a true passion for acting. In her 3 years in the entertainment industry, she had created many memorable characters. She couldn't have become an A-list actress in just 3 years on looks alone. The entertainment world was full of rising stars. Without real talent, you could be replaced in an instant. Aurora knew this well, so she never slacked off. Even with Ethan's backing, she always put in 120% effort into everything she did. In school, she had always been at the top of her class. After debuting, she refused to fall behind. She approached every job and every role with the utmost dedication. She was clear-headed, talented, hardworking, and knew what she wanted. That's why so many agents in the industry had envied Laura for having such a self-sufficient artist. Now, although she was no longer part of the entertainment world, her love for acting and film remained. So, Aurora applied to the best acting school in America, planning to study film for another 2 years. Even before, she had considered shifting her career focus to film. She had once encountered a film project she loved with an excellent crew. She had auditioned several times, and the director, Mr. Lee, had chosen her for the lead role. His only condition was that she cut her hair short, as the character she was to play had short hair. But because Ethan wouldn't allow it, she had to let the role go. If she had starred in that film, her career would have reached even greater heights. But that was all in the past. The identity of an A-list actress belonged to Aurora Kingsley. The current Aurora was a diligent graduate student of film. Having been in the spotlight before, she knew that even though she was in America, where no one should recognize her, if she re-entered the film industry as Aurora Kingsley, people would quickly realize she looked exactly like the dead actress. After careful consideration, she decided to pursue a career behind the scenes. This way, she could pursue her dream of filmmaking without inviting unnecessary trouble. Aurora had been away from school for so long. Returning now, after a 3-year absence, filled her with an indescribable feeling. She was the first to arrive in the classroom every day and would linger after class, peppering her professors with questions about anything she didn't understand. Even in subjects she hadn't excelled at before, Aurora worked twice as hard to close the gap. As a result, she consistently held the top spot in her program. The American film industry was thriving, and in her spare time, on her professors' recommendations, Aurora would go to film sets to learn and help out as a production assistant. To completely sever ties with her past life as the actress Aurora Kingsley, she went by a new professional name Christy both at school and on film sets. Chapter 25, just as she had worked harder than anyone as the actress Aurora Kingsley, she was just as diligent now as Christy. 2 years into her studies, Christy had already become a well-known intern in Hollywood. Everyone knew about the girl named Christy, who was exceptionally hardworking. She threw herself into her work on set, doing whatever was asked of her, seemingly possessing boundless energy for every role and task. Sometimes Aurora would serve as a lighting stand-in for the lead actress. When the crew was short-handed, she'd help with makeup and styling. She had even held the boom mic. Aurora quickly became one of the crew, learning a great deal from them, and they, in turn, grew very fond of her. After all, it was rare to find someone so hardworking and good-natured. It was hard not to like her. Besides, Aurora was beautiful. Sometimes, when the production needed extras, the director would ask her to step in and play a small part. Over time, the directors discovered that Aurora was also a surprisingly good actress. Gradually, her walk-on roles evolved into parts with a few lines. This time, she even landed 2 scenes with the reigning film emperor, Caspian Shaw. Speaking of the film emperor, Aurora had to admit she was impressed. Caspian Shaw was a Chinese-American who had grown up in the States, giving him a slightly mixed-race appearance. He was about the same age as Aurora. Discovered by a talent scout for his good looks, Caspian landed his first leading role at 17. He was an instant sensation. With his incredibly charismatic acting, his debut film shot him to stardom. 6 years after his debut, at just 23, he won his first Best Actor award. At that time, Aurora had only been in the industry for a year, just starting to get third female lead roles, while Caspian Shaw was already a film emperor. Naturally, Aurora had heard of him, but since she had been based in New York while he was in Hollywood, their paths had never crossed, and he had no idea who she was. Aurora never imagined she would end up on one of his sets. While Caspian was exceptionally talented, famous, and a brilliant actor, he wasn't exactly a workaholic. He was known for his casual, go-with-the-flow personality. In his 10-year career, he had only appeared in 10 films, several of which were just supporting cameo roles. So, seeing him here was a surprise. In her nearly 2 years of working odd jobs in Hollywood, this was the first time she had ever encountered the famous actor. Rumor had it that Caspian was a top-tier wealthy heir who didn't need the money. Acting was just a hobby, so it wasn't uncommon for him to make only one film every 2 or 3 years. But any project he joined was guaranteed to be a masterpiece, earning at least a few major award nominations. Caspian had been inactive in the entertainment world for 2 years. Aurora wondered what winds had blown him back this time. She was quite surprised when she saw him on set. Although the crew had been buzzing that the male lead was a very mysterious actor, she never would have guessed it was Caspian Shaw. However, after glancing at the script, Aurora saw that the screenwriter and director were two of his most frequent collaborators. It all made sense then. No one else could have likely coaxed this titan out of retirement. The day Caspian arrived on set, he caused quite a stir. He was breathtakingly handsome, tall and long-legged, with sharp brows and star-like eyes. Even in Hollywood, surrounded by handsome Western actors, he held his own. His eyes, in particular, seemed to speak. Caspian's irises were lighter than anyone Aurora had known back in New York. Perhaps due to a lack of melanin, his eyes were a light brown, and his hair was naturally the same shade. When those light brown eyes looked at you, it felt as if they could pull you into an abyss. Chapter 26, the call time was early that day, and as a crew member, Aurora had to be up before dawn. Filming hadn't started yet, and she was dozing off on a small folding stool in a corner when a sudden wave of excited gasps woke her. Drowsily, Aurora rubbed her eyes and looked ahead. Through her blurry vision, she saw a tall man surrounded by a crowd. She stood up, stretching and yawning quietly in her corner, her vision finally clearing. Looking toward the huddle again, she realized the man at the center of it all was Caspian Shaw. He was so tall that even with a crowd around him, his face was fully visible. Aurora stood outside the circle, silently watching him. He had a smile on his face as he signed autographs for the crew members one by one. With a silver fine tipped pen in hand, he patiently signed for each person. It wasn't every day he made an appearance, so now that they had him cornered, everyone wanted an autograph. "Don't rush, one at a time," Caspian said soothingly as he signed. "I got here early, so everyone will get a chance." Aurora watched him quietly. He hadn't even been through hair and makeup yet. His soft brown hair fell gently across his forehead, making him look surprisingly docile. As he lowered his head to sign, Aurora could see his thick eyelashes even from a distance. A Hollywood publication had once called Caspian Shaw the most suitable Eastern face for the big screen because he had strikingly defined features, a flawless face from every angle. When a face that handsome was magnified on the big screen, its beauty was only amplified. Aurora had seen his movies in theaters before. Caspian was undeniably good-looking, even when his characters were grimy and disheveled. She had assumed his on-screen appeal was enhanced by cinematic quality and character filters. But seeing him in person now, Aurora realized he was even more handsome than he appeared on screen. He was only wearing a simple black hoodie, yet he stood out from the crowd effortlessly. Since she was in a corner where no one was paying attention, Aurora studied him unabashedly, her thoughts drifting away as she watched. By the time she snapped back to reality, the crowd around Caspian had mostly dispersed. Only one last, excited female crew member was waiting for her autograph. After sending her off with a smile, Caspian turned and saw Aurora staring straight at him. He had noticed the woman watching him from the corner while he was surrounded. He hadn't thought much of it, assuming she was just another fan. But she never came forward to ask for an autograph, which he found a little strange. Now that the crowd was gone, Caspian finally had a chance to get a good look at her. Aurora was beautiful. Her glossy black hair fell to her collarbones, and her fair, radiant features were framed by the wavy locks, giving her a captivating, alluring charm. Even for Caspian, who was used to seeing beautiful women in the entertainment industry, the sight of her was striking. He started walking toward her. When Aurora saw him look her way, their eyes met for a fleeting moment before she quickly averted her gaze. Caspian's eyes were too captivating, one could easily get lost in them. Aurora didn't dare meet his gaze, but she noticed he was walking directly toward her. Puzzled, she glanced to her left and right. She was the only one standing there. Was he really coming for her? Chapter 27, Caspian stopped in front of Aurora, noticing she was quite tall. At this close distance, she came up to his chin. Being so tall, Caspian often had to crane his neck down when talking to women. It was especially a problem when filming opposite shorter actresses, where the prolonged bending often gave him a backache. But standing in front of Aurora now felt comfortable. He didn't even have to consciously look down to see her face. He glanced at her feet. She was wearing sneakers, not heels. A pleased smile touched his lips as he raised an eyebrow and held something out to her. Seeing the object in her peripheral vision, Aurora instinctively took it. She had been wondering what he was handing her. When she looked down, she realized it was a signed photo of him. Aurora fell silent. Did he think she was a fan? It was true she had seen all of his films, but she wasn't actually his fan. For the past 3 years, her heart and soul had belonged to Ethan Harrison, and for the 2 years since, her mind had been consumed with her studies and self-improvement. She had no room to be a fan of anyone. Just as she was debating whether to tell him the truth, Caspian spoke first. "I saw you watching me from over there, but you didn't come over. I figured you might be a fan but were too shy, so I signed an extra one for you." Aurora felt a flush of embarrassment. She couldn't believe he had noticed her gaze, even while surrounded by so many people. She had thought he would never see her, which was why she had stared so brazenly. Not only had he noticed, but he had mistaken her for a fan. What she hadn't expected at all was his thoughtfulness signing an extra photo and waiting for the crowd to leave to give it to her personally because he thought she was shy. A small tremor went through her heart. "Thank you, Mr. Shaw," she said. "I love it." This time, her thanks were sincere. She felt that people with such keen observational skills and consideration for others were rare. To her, Caspian was a renowned senior actor, a film emperor. To him, she was just a crew member he had never met. Yet he had taken the time to be mindful of her feelings. His sensitivity was admirable. There were no cameras or outsiders around, which meant his gesture was a product of good breeding, not an act. No wonder Caspian had reached the pinnacle of his profession and was so well liked. Anyone who worked with him seemed to adore him. This must be his charm. Seeing her earnest expression, Caspian couldn't help but smile. When he did, 2 charming canines peeked out, and the smile was so bright it momentarily stunned her. "Seeing your reaction, I'm starting to think I might have been mistaken," he chuckled. "You don't seem like my fan. Sorry, looks like I got ahead of myself." Caught, Aurora felt another wave of embarrassment, but she answered honestly. "You're right, I'm not really your fan, but I am a loyal viewer of your work." She searched for the right words. "I've seen all your films, you're a brilliant actor, and I love your work." As if afraid he might be offended, she quickly added, "But after seeing you in person today, I've decided to become a fan. Starting today, I'm officially on your side." Aurora pressed her forehead. Why did she still have this terrible habit of rambling when she was nervous? Babbling like this in front of Caspian Shaw, he probably thought she was crazy. When he didn't reply for a long moment, her heart sank. She nervously glanced up at him, only to meet a pair of smiling eyes. His light brown irises crinkled into beautiful crescents. Caspian covered his mouth with his fist, letting out a soft laugh. His playful voice reached her ears. "All right then. Since you've decided to be my fan, you're not allowed to leave the fan club. Ever." Chapter 28, Aurora's eyes widened at his words. She had thought her nonsensical rambling would annoy him, but she never imagined he would respond to it so seriously. As Caspian's smiling eyes remained fixed on her, she could only nod. "Are you part of the crew here?" he asked. "What's your name?" "My name is Christy. I'm a graduate student from the film school next door, here as an intern." Caspian nodded in understanding. He was about to say more when the assistant director, megaphone in hand, started calling for him. "Caspian Shaw, Caspian, where are you?" Caspian turned and called back, "Over here." Then, with one last sentence, he hurried away. It took Aurora a moment to process what he had just said. He had said, "See you in a bit, beautiful Eastern girl." Aurora could feel it distinctly. The heart she thought had died long ago had just skipped a beat. She had known she was beautiful since she was a child, but she had never been proud of her looks. Firstly, growing up in an orphanage had left her with a deep-seated insecurity. Secondly, she had always believed beauty was a double-edged sword, bringing both advantages and disadvantages. Countless people had praised her beauty over the years. Some of their compliments were laced with flirtation, others with jealousy, envy, or affection. Only Caspian's praise held genuine affirmation. It was devoid of any other emotion, just a simple acknowledgement, like a gold star from a kindergarten teacher. Aurora felt that though she had met him less than an hour ago, her mind was already in turmoil. She took a moment to compose herself before returning to the set. A large group was gathered, working in silence. Everyone was focused on their tasks, the only sounds being the actor's dialogue and the director's voice. Filming had already begun. Aurora tiptoed to the edge of the set and watched quietly. It was Caspian's scene. He and another actress were supposed to be walking down a tree-lined path, talking. But after several takes, the director was still not satisfied and was now fuming. Aurora whispered to her friend on set, a production assistant named Jessica, "What's going on? Why is the director so angry? Isn't Caspian his favorite actor?" Jessica glanced around to make sure no one was listening before pulling Aurora closer and whispering in her ear. "It's not Caspian's fault. It's Jennifer, the actress he's with. She's only 5'4", but to land the role opposite him, she lied and said she was 5'8". When she stood next to him, the height difference was just too much. There's almost a foot between them, so they can't be framed in the same shot properly. That's why the director's so furious. You know how he hates it when people lie to his face. Jennifer's probably finished. He'll blacklist her permanently after this." Aurora looked shocked. Back when she was in the New York entertainment scene, she knew people fudged their height, someone who was 5'2" claiming to be 5'3", or 5'10" claiming to be 6 foot. That was common. But she had never seen anyone brazen enough to lie by a whole 4 inches. Were people really that desperate for the perfect image these days? Chapter 29, Jennifer had come to set wearing a pair of platform shoes with 2 extra lifts inside, so she hadn't looked too short at first. She had been secretly gloating. Landing a role in such a high-caliber production opposite Caspian Shaw was a huge opportunity. After the movie came out, she was sure to get noticed. Maybe she could even stir up some buzz as an on-screen couple with him. Once her fame grew, more doors would open. Jennifer was congratulating herself on her cleverness. That was until she changed into her costume, and the director asked her to swap her shoes. It was common for actors in modern films to use their own clothes or shoes. But Jennifer's shoes were expensive and far too flashy, clashing completely with her character's simple, down-to-earth persona. Actors serve their roles, so the director had no choice but to ask her to change. He never expected that one simple request would expose her lie. The director flew into a rage and immediately ordered her off the set. "Jennifer, get out of that costume and get out of my sight, and don't you ever show your face in front of me again. I hate liars." After Jennifer was kicked out, the production came to a halt. Without an actress to play opposite him, Caspian couldn't exactly finish the scene by himself. Fortunately, it was the first day of shooting, so replacing her now wouldn't be too much of a hassle. The director, his face grim, called over the casting director. "Do we have an alternate for this role? Can they get here before this afternoon? The weather won't be this good tomorrow or the day after. We have to finish these 2 scenes today." The casting director immediately started making calls. But after contacting several people, the answer was always the same. Either they weren't available or they couldn't make it in time. Some even turned the role down, deeming it too insignificant. It was a minor supporting part with only 2 scenes. Even though it meant acting opposite Caspian Shaw, the character's total screen time in the film was unlikely to exceed 15 minutes. Many weren't interested. Most moderately successful actors had a bit of an ego. If they could play a lead, they wouldn't stoop to a supporting role. After all, the pay, the billing, and the screen time were worlds apart. The casting director spent nearly an hour on the phone, but couldn't find a single person to take the part. Hearing the news, the director's expression darkened further. Caspian, on the other hand, seemed unbothered, even finding the time to joke. "Director, why don't you just call that actress back?" "I don't mind." The director shot him a glare. "Well, I mind you can't even fit in the same close-up, and the height difference in a wide shot is just ugly. I'd rather die than shoot something that hideous." Caspian just smiled, not replying immediately. His gaze swept across the set and quickly locked onto a figure whispering with someone else. "Actually, director," Caspian said casually, "there's a suitable candidate right here on set." "Who are you talking about?" The director looked at him, puzzled, before a flash of inspiration hit. He yelled toward the crew, "Christy, are you here?" Startled by the sudden call of her name, Aurora felt like a student caught whispering in class by the teacher. She peeked out. "Director, I'm here." "Christy, come save the day. I need you to do a scene with Caspian." Chapter 30. Aurora was sure she was hearing things. Her act with Caspian Shaw? One minute she was enjoying the drama, and the next, the problem had landed squarely in her lap. She couldn't tell if this was a good thing or a bad thing. The entire crew was now looking at her, and she felt like she was being pushed into the spotlight against her will. She couldn't very well refuse, so she steeled herself and walked over to the director. "Me. Director, are you sure?" The director looked her up and down, growing more and more pleased. Although Aurora was from the east, so was Caspian. The two of them standing together looked much more compatible than he and Jennifer had. Plus, Aurora was tall. The director tugged on Caspian's sleeve, pulling him next to her. The top of Aurora's head reached just below Caspian's lips. Their height was perfect. The director clicked his tongue in satisfaction. "Christy, how tall are you? This is the first time I've seen a woman whose height complements Caspian's so well." "Without shoes, I think I'm 5'8", Aurora replied after a moment's thought. The director grinned. "Oh, Caspian is 6'2", which means you're exactly 6 inches shorter. Visually, that's the perfect height difference. No wonder you two look so good together." Aurora awkwardly touched her nose, her eyes darting away. "Director, can I really do this? I haven't even read the script, and you want me to act opposite the film emperor? I'm afraid I won't be able to handle it." The director waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry, I have faith in you. There are no lines in this scene. You play Caspian's girlfriend, and the two of you are taking a walk down this path. The scene is about you two having to part ways shortly after getting together. You're walking him to the station. You don't want him to go, but you have no choice. Halfway down the path, Caspian will take your hand. You need to act surprised and happy, with a hint of shyness. When you reach the end of the path, you look at each other reluctantly. Finally, he gives you a hug and turns to leave." Aurora nodded to show she understood, and the director sent her off for hair and makeup. As the makeup artist worked on her face, Aurora kept thinking about how she would perform the scene. A scene without dialogue might sound easy because there were no lines to memorize, but in reality, it was much harder. When there was no dialogue, all the plot and emotion had to be conveyed through the actor's expressions. There was a saying in the industry: silent performance is many times more difficult than performance with dialogue. Fortunately, the character's personality was quite close to her own, so she wouldn't have to add too many artificial layers to her performance. The stylist braided her hair into 2 small plaits and dressed her in a white shirt and a pleated skirt, which gave her a sweet, gentle, and youthful look. Aurora already had a great foundation and took good care of her skin, so the hair and makeup process was quick, taking less than half an hour. The director looked at the transformed Aurora and nodded in satisfaction. "Christy, I should have just cast you from the start. This look suits you much better than it did Jennifer." Aurora smiled. "Thank you for the compliment, director." After all the delays, the scene that was supposed to shoot at 8 in the morning was now scheduled for 10. Thankfully, the weather was on their side. The 10 o'clock sun wasn't harsh, just a little brighter than it had been at 8. Standing next to Caspian waiting for the call to action, Aurora couldn't help but take a deep breath. This was her first real acting role in 2 years. Although she had done many extra parts for various directors before, most were nameless characters. But this time, by a twist of fate, she was playing the unforgettable ex-girlfriend of the male lead. Though the role was small, it was significant, and more importantly, her co-star was Caspian Shaw. Caspian glanced at her from the side. He noticed her nervousness and teased, "Don't be nervous, my little girlfriend." Chapter 31. At Caspian's words, a blush crept up to the tips of Aurora's ears. She was about to say something when the director shouted through his megaphone, "Everyone ready, and 3, 2, 1, action." A crew member quickly snapped the clapperboard in front of them, and the scene began. Aurora and Caspian walked side by side down the plain tree-lined path. They were silent, but the air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. The director held his breath, his eyes glued to the monitor. On the small screen, Aurora and Caspian stood close together, the handsome man and beautiful woman a feast for the eyes. Aurora looked down, her face a mask of restrained sorrow, while Caspian's expression was one of helpless resignation. He took her hand. "I'm leaving," he said softly. "Don't look so sad, be happy. Give me a smile." Aurora didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she turned her face aside, refusing to look at him. Caspian smiled at her reaction and squeezed her hand a little tighter. They walked the rest of the way in silence. When they reached the end of the path, he gently pulled her into his arms. Aurora didn't embrace him back. Her hands hung stubbornly at her sides, but her eyes were already glistening with tears. "Wait for me to come back," Caspian whispered. "I'll marry you then, okay?" She didn't answer, but she slowly raised her arms and wrapped them around his waist in a silent response. A boyish grin spread across Caspian's face. He placed a kiss on the top of her head, then turned and walked away. Cut great, that's a wrap on that one. Aurora wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. Hearing the director call cut after just one take, she could hardly believe it. As the director walked over with a beaming smile, she couldn't help but ask, "Director, did we really get it in one take? Shouldn't we do another one?" The director patted her on the shoulder. "No need. That take was perfect." "Christy, your acting is even better than I imagined," he praised. "I didn't even give you a script, yet you perfectly embodied the scene. And you weren't intimidated by Caspian at all. You caught every cue he threw at you. If I hadn't pulled you in at the last minute to save the day, I would have thought you two rehearsed this beforehand. And you and Caspian have amazing chemistry. Watching you on the monitor, wow, you two look so right together." Aurora was a little embarrassed by the praise. "Not at all, it's because you directed the scene so well." Caspian chimed in with a smile. "Don't be modest, Christy. You're a really good actress." He thought for a moment, then asked, "But with skills like that, have you acted professionally before?" At his question, Aurora stiffened. Before she could think of an answer, the director jumped in. "Caspian, you've been away for 2 years, so you wouldn't know. Christy is a grad student at the film school next door. She helps out on sets around Hollywood whenever she has free time. I'm sure I've mentioned her to you. You big stars are so forgetful. Christy's been working on sets here for 2 years. She's incredibly diligent, always the first to volunteer for any task. Everyone here knows her." A look of realization dawned on Caspian's face. "Oh," he said admiringly. "So she's a workaholic." After that scene, the production had to move on to the lead actress's part. The director, now busy, hurried off, leaving Caspian and Aurora behind. Everyone on set was bustling around to prepare for the next shot, leaving the two of them as the only idle ones. Caspian's gaze never left Aurora, but she didn't have the courage to meet his eyes. Though it was just a simple hand hold and a hug for a scene, her face still felt hot, probably because it had been so long since she'd had any close contact with a man. When Caspian had held her, even though she was immersed in the role, she could hear her own heart pounding like a drum. Perhaps because it was rare to meet someone from back home in a foreign country, she felt a natural sense of affinity toward him. His embrace had been so warm and vast, bringing an inexplicable sense of peace. Chapter 32, seeing that the tips of Aurora's ears were still bright red, Caspian found it amusing. He teased, "Christy, why are you so shy? All we did was hold hands and hug, and your ears are still red." Aurora covered her ears, protesting. "No, I'm just hot," Caspian chuckled and sat down in a folding chair on set. He twisted open a bottle of mineral water and handed it to her before opening one for himself. He took a sip and said casually, "Well, I hope it's not shyness, because our next scene together is a kiss scene." Aurora, who had just taken a drink of water, choked and started coughing violently. After a few coughs, she managed to catch her breath and asked in shock, "What did you say?" Caspian repeated with an innocent look, "I didn't say anything." But she had heard him loud and clear. "My next scene with you is a kiss scene?" she exclaimed in disbelief. Caspian nodded, but Aurora was far from calm. "Didn't the director say my character only has 2 scenes? How can there be a kiss scene?" He shrugged. "Because your character is my unforgettable ex-girlfriend, the one who lives on in my memory. Your scenes appear as flashbacks in the movie. And since they're memories, they have to be significant moments. We can't exactly have a flashback of us drinking tea and making small talk, can we?" Aurora was at a loss for words. He had a point. And for 2 characters who were boyfriend and girlfriend, a kiss scene was perfectly normal. Except, Aurora had never filmed a kiss scene before. When she debuted 5 years ago, she was already with Ethan Harrison. At first, roles with romantic scenes were out of her reach. Later, when she was offered them, Ethan strictly forbade her from taking them. She had been heavily criticized by anti-fans for it at the time. Ethan was extremely possessive. He wouldn't even allow her to film scenes involving holding hands or hugging, let alone kissing. So, despite being an actress for 3 years, she had never done a single intimate scene. Back then, she had been so deeply in love with Ethan that she was willing to obey his every command. Besides, she was naturally shy to begin with, but she never imagined her first on-screen kiss would come so suddenly. Noticing her hesitation, Caspian asked, "What's wrong? You've never filmed a kiss scene before?" "Right, of course. If holding hands and hugging makes you this shy, you've definitely never done a kiss scene." "So what if I haven't? Neither have you, Aurora blurted out, a mix of anger and embarrassment making her reckless. She had seen all of Caspian's films, so she knew he had never had any intimate scenes either. The characters he played were often tragic figures from humble backgrounds, many of whom didn't even have a love story. So this wouldn't just be her first on-screen kiss, it would be his too. Instead of getting angry, Caspian laughed. Christy, you even know that I've never filmed a kiss scene. Are you sure you're not really my fan? Aurora turned her head away, ignoring him. In her mind, she was already trying to figure out how to tactfully decline the scene with the director. Caspian saw right through her. He smiled. Thinking about how to get the director to recast your role? Don't bother. He's too happy with our pairing. He'll never agree to it. Christy, aren't you from the film school next door? I remember their motto is something about sacrificing everything for art and for the character. How come when it's your turn, you can't even handle one little kiss scene? Or is it, you just don't like me? Chapter 33. At Caspian's words, Aurora felt a pang of guilt. She quickly waved her hands. No, how could I possibly dislike you, Mr. Shaw? I've never done it before, so I'm a little shy. Seeing her like this, Caspian felt an urge to tease her more. He put on a serious face. Since neither of us has done this before, we'll just have to practice a few times. Besides, they'll need to shoot from multiple angles, so we'll have plenty of chances to practice. Ever heard of an 8-camera kiss scene? Aurora's eyes widened in shock. 8 cameras? Didn't that mean they would have to shoot the same scene from 8 different angles? And there was no guarantee they would get it right on the first try. Although she'd never filmed a kiss scene, she'd seen others do it, and it always required multiple angles. Directors were also more demanding with intimate scenes. She remembered being on one set where the director made the lead actors reshoot a kiss more than 10 times because he felt it wasn't passionate enough. The thought made her heart sink. It wasn't that she had a problem with Caspian, but they had only known each other for 2 hours, and now she had to film a kiss scene with him. It felt a bit much. She knew he was handsome and a great actor, and certainly not the type to take advantage of the situation. Still, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Her mind was a jumbled mess. Her eyes involuntarily drifted to his lips. Even his lips were perfectly shaped. Aurora felt her cheeks grow warm. Seeing her expression, Caspian found the situation utterly amusing. He let out a laugh but decided to stop teasing her. All right, stop overthinking. I know you're sensitive, I was just messing with you. I'll go ask the director if we can fake the kiss using camera angles. As long as you cooperate, we should be able to get it in one take. I won't take advantage of you. His magnanimous words made Aurora feel a little small-minded. He was right. As actors, they should be willing to give everything for their roles. And here she was, fussing over a single kiss scene. It was hardly the mark of a good actor. In her heart, Aurora knew she was a good actor. She had refused all intimate scenes in the past because of Ethan's despotism. But she and Ethan were long over. It was time for her to take this step, just as she had cut her long hair. The blush faded from her cheeks. She looked at Caspian, shook her head, and said, "It's okay, I don't mind. As a professional actress, I can perfectly execute all the requirements of the script for this character." As evening approached, it was time for their final scene together. The stylist changed her into a long dress that flowed down to her ankles, concealing everything beneath. Her long hair was swept up into a simple bun, giving her a more gentle and elegant look. In the script, 2 years had passed since the lovers last parted. Now, reunited at last, they were overcome with emotion and couldn't help but share a passionate kiss upon seeing the person they had longed for. The weather was perfect, as if to match the sweetness of the scene. The dusk sky was painted with streaks of pink clouds, a breathtaking sight. Aurora stood waiting, expectantly looking for her lover's return. Caspian ran toward her from a distance. As he reached her, he wrapped an arm around her slender waist, pulling her into his embrace. He cupped her face and pressed a deep, passionate kiss to her lips. Again, no words were spoken, but the tender, lingering kiss conveyed all their longing and devotion. Everything was said without a sound. Time seemed to stand still. In that moment, it felt as though they were the only 2 people in the world. After a long, deep kiss, they finally broke apart and held each other in a tight embrace. At last, the director called out, "Cut, that's a wrap." Just as they had expected, they nailed the kiss scene in a single take. But the rush of emotions didn't subside so quickly. Caspian held Aurora tightly, as if he wanted to absorb her into himself. His voice was soft and a little hoarse. He said, "Yanyan, I've finally found you." Chapter 34. Aurora had been trying to compose herself, but Caspian's words made her freeze on the spot. Although they were both from New York, they had been speaking English on the Hollywood set. But what Caspian had just said was in Mandarin, and he had clearly called her Yanyan. Aurora didn't know if the Yanyan he spoke of was the actress she once was, or the person she was now, Aurora Kingsley. A sliver of fear crept into her heart. She abruptly pushed him away and demanded in Mandarin, "Caspian Shaw, what did you just call me?" The commotion they made wasn't small, but everyone else was busy packing up, so no one noticed them. Caspian hadn't expected his slip of the tongue to provoke such a strong reaction. "Christy, please calm down," he said quickly, but Aurora took a wary step back. "Caspian Shaw, you knew who I was before today, didn't you?" she pressed. He sighed. "Christy, don't be so tense. I mean you no harm." She wouldn't let it go. "Answer my question, Caspian." Her fists were clenched, like a cornered animal ready to attack. She frantically searched her memory for any possible occasion where their paths might have crossed, but she came up empty. Caspian had spent most of his time in the States, while she had always been in New York before coming here. How could they have ever met? A man as exceptional as Caspian Shaw was not someone she could ever forget meeting. She was certain they had never met in New York. And since she had come to America, he hadn't even been active in the industry, making an encounter even more unlikely. So when did he get to know her? Unable to figure it out, she could only look to him for answers. After a long silence, Caspian finally relented. "Yes, I did know you, from a long time ago, 5 years ago to be exact." 5 years ago. Did that mean he knew her when she was still the actress Ming Yan? But how was that possible? That identity had been declared dead. If he recognized her, why hadn't he exposed her? 1,000 questions swirled in her mind, and she didn't know where to begin. She ran a hand through her hair in frustration. Caspian saw her confusion. "Let's find a place to sit and talk," he suggested. Aurora nodded. She needed to get to the bottom of this. If he recognized her, did that mean others could too? If her secret ever came out, she needed to be prepared. After 2 years with the Kingsley family, Aurora was accustomed to a life of luxury. When she saw Caspian's expensive car, she didn't bat an eye and got in with composure. He took her to a very private restaurant. "It's late. Let's talk over dinner." Aurora didn't have much of an appetite and just ordered a steak. After closing the menu, she cut straight to the chase. "Caspian Shaw, how do you know me?" Chapter 35. Caspian ordered a few more dishes before handing the menu back to the waiter. Only then did he turn to Aurora. "Because I'm your fan," he said. "To be more precise, I have a crush on you." His words left Aurora momentarily stunned. "You're my fan? How is that possible? 5 years ago, I was in New York, and I was a nobody when you were already famous." "How could you be my fan?" Caspian smiled. "You might not believe it, but I really am. Do you remember when you first started out? You couldn't get any acting roles, and the first commercial gig you landed was for a soft drink? I was a loyal customer of that drink you endorsed. The sales for that drink weren't actually that great, and it didn't have a spokesperson before you. I guess your boss at the time must have spent a lot of money to get you that deal," he said, laughing at the memory. His words brought back a flood of memories for Aurora. She still remembered it clearly. It was the first commercial of her career. The soft drink Caspian mentioned was a peach-flavored sparkling water. 5 years ago, sparkling water wasn't popular in the soft drink market. At the time, she hadn't understood why Ethan had given her such an obscure endorsement deal. But then she figured that since everything was a first for her, it was a new experience. For some reason, after her commercial aired, the company behind the sparkling water distributed the short, 15-second ad globally, and the returns were surprisingly good. Soon after, her face was printed on the packaging of the peach sparkling water, which she had found incredibly embarrassing at the time. But it was because of that ad that more and more people came to know her, and she started getting more commercial offers. She could still recall being a fresh college graduate, wearing a light pink floral dress and spending 2 full days shooting in a peach orchard. Even though the final cut was only 15 seconds long, she had been very satisfied. It was, after all, her very first professional work. She never would have imagined that Caspian Shaw had seen that ad, which, looking back, seemed almost silly. "You saw that commercial?" "I didn't see the ad at first. I just really liked that sparkling water, so I'd always restock at the supermarket as soon as I ran out at home. Then one day, I saw your picture on the box and the bottle. I thought it was strange because the drink had never had a spokesperson before. I remember in the photo, you had long hair and a beautiful smile. I thought you were very pretty. Later, I saw your commercial on TV, the one where you're running through a peach orchard in a little pink dress. The concept was pretty cheesy, but there's no denying that you looked beautiful even in such a silly ad. Especially your smile. It had this way of hitting you right in the heart. I think that's one of the reasons you had so many male fans later on." It was true. Among her peers in the New York entertainment circle at the time, Aurora had the largest male fan base. She had always found it strange herself, but she never thought it could have been because of that commercial. "So that's what you guys liked?" she asked, dumbfounded. Caspian smiled. "I don't know about anyone else, but I liked it a lot." Chapter 36. "So that's how you knew me?" Aurora still found it hard to believe. The words he had whispered while holding her were filled with so many emotions she couldn't decipher, as if he had known her for years. "Yes, I drank a bottle of that sparkling water every day. Seeing your picture every day gave me the illusion that I was seeing you every day. When your contract with the company ended and your picture disappeared from the cans, I actually felt a little lost. Later, I discovered we were in the same profession. So, in my spare time between filming, I would watch all of your TV shows and movies. I even watched your interviews and commercials. Maybe it was because I couldn't see your picture on the cans anymore. It had become a habit, and it felt strange not to see you for a day, so I had to search for you elsewhere. Over time, I got to know you through all that material. You were no longer just a flat image to me, but a real, living person. It was like we were friends who had never met. And through you, I think I started to understand how my own fans feel about me. Until 2 years ago, when you had that accident on set and Star Ocean Entertainment announced your death. After that, I lost all news of you." As he spoke, Caspian's cheerful tone grew somber. "I was on set filming that day. When I saw the obituary after we wrapped, I just burst into tears. I think I must have really liked you a lot. When I saw that you had been harmed by someone so vicious, I couldn't believe it at first. Then I was overwhelmed with grief. So after that movie was finished, I didn't take another role for nearly 2 years. It's no exaggeration to say that news of your death affected me deeply. I kept thinking, how could a girl like an angel be killed just like that? In the 2 years I wasn't filming, I traveled the world. I held on to this tiny hope. What if the news of your death was fake? What if I could somehow meet you?" After listening to his story, Aurora didn't know what to say. She had imagined many scenarios in which she might meet Caspian Shaw, but never this one. Could someone really fall in love with another person through a screen? The answer, she knew, was yes. Because she, too, in the hopeless and difficult years of her youth, had once adored someone on the other side of a screen. For a girl who grew up in an orphanage, the television was her only form of entertainment. Through that little black box, she saw the vast world. The orphanage director loved to keep the TV on the movie channel, which was probably what sparked her dream of going to film school. She still remembered the film that solidified her decision. She had watched it one night at the orphanage. The movie's story was set in an orphanage. The protagonist was a little boy from an orphanage, and for the first time, she felt a deep sense of connection to a film. In that moment, she truly understood the magic of cinema. That movie was Caspian Shaw's award-winning debut. He was 17 at the time. It was that very film that launched his incredible career. And it was because of that film that she had set out on her own path into the world of acting. So it was true that people could be on a mutual journey without knowing it. She and Caspian had influenced each other at different points in their lives. Chapter 37. From that day on, Aurora made sure to support every one of Caspian's films on opening day. She couldn't deny that she had seen all of his work, and every character he played was incredibly charismatic. This charisma came not just from the roles he portrayed, but from Caspian himself. But she had never considered herself his fan. She was more of a loyal viewer. Seeing her remain silent for so long, Caspian couldn't help but ask, "Aurora, why aren't you saying anything? Can you tell me the truth about what happened back then? Do you know, when I saw you here, hearing him use her old name, Aurora bristled. My name is Aurora Kingsley now, she snapped. Ming Yan, she died a long time ago. Caspian was taken aback by her sharp tone. He knew he was in the wrong for bringing up her painful past. Okay, Aurora, he said quickly. Don't be angry, I didn't mean to bring up bad memories. I was just concerned about you. Aurora sighed, knowing she had overreacted. It was just that the identity of Ming Yan felt like a brand of shame. Whenever she heard that name, she couldn't help but remember the 3 years she had been completely manipulated by Ethan Harrison. Her emotions calmed. I'm sorry, I got too emotional. It's just those aren't exactly good memories for me. She told him everything, how Bianca White had set her up that day, and how her brother Ryan had saved her. For some reason, Caspian exuded a natural sense of security. Maybe it was just as he said. After all those years of watching each other through a screen, it felt as if they already knew one another. When Caspian learned she was the daughter of the Kingsley family, he was astonished. The Kingsleys? The same Kingsley family I know. The wealthiest family in New York? When she nodded, he felt a sense of absurdity, as if fate was playing a massive joke on him. What is it? Aurora asked, noticing his strange expression. Caspian sighed. Yan, did you know that your family, the Kingsleys, and my family, the Shaws, are old family friends? In fact, the reason your father moved the whole family to New York was on my father's advice. And what's more, your brother Ryan and I are old acquaintances. Aurora's jaw dropped. She was speechless. Could such a coincidence really exist? My mother told me, Caspian continued, that our families even had a childhood betrothal arranged for us. But after the Kingsleys' young daughter was kidnapped by enemies and disappeared, our family couldn't bring it up again. I always knew about the missing Kingsley daughter, but I never imagined that person was you. So, you were found by Ryan 2 years ago, right? The Kingsleys threw a party for you. I received an invitation, but I was in the middle of filming and couldn't get away. I've been traveling the world for the past 2 years, so I haven't visited the Kingsleys. I did hear from Ryan occasionally, though. He mentioned his sister was trying to make it in Hollywood and asked if I could help her out. I think I just gave him some non-committal answer at the time. As Caspian connected the dots, the story became more and more unbelievable, even to him. So while he was mourning the death of Ming Yan, he had missed the opportunity to meet Aurora Kingsley when it was handed to him on a silver platter. She had been right there within his reach, yet he had spent 2 years searching for her in vain. Caspian didn't know whether to call it fate's punishment or its gift, but at least, despite all the twists and turns, he had finally found her. Chapter 38. Hearing Caspian's story, Aurora remembered that she had indeed met his parents. In fact, his mother had taken a particular liking to her, always holding her hand and chatting for ages whenever she visited the Kingsley estate. Mrs. Shaw was constantly telling Aurora how wonderful her son was, and Aurora had even sensed a bit of matchmaking in her words. But at the time, she was just starting to heal from the emotional wounds Ethan had inflicted and had no interest in romance, so she had politely declined Mrs. Shaw's kind intentions. Thinking back now, Mrs. Shaw had praised her son endlessly, but she had never once mentioned his name. Otherwise, they might not have missed out on these past 2 years. As the full picture became clear, both Aurora and Caspian couldn't help but find it amusing. Fate had truly played a grand joke on them. Yan, Caspian said softly, all those years you were away from home, were you okay? Aurora raised an eyebrow. I've made my peace with it. Looking back on the past 27 years, I think everything, good and bad, was a gift from fate. Seeing the look of acceptance on her face, Caspian finally felt a sense of relief. Aurora looked at him. Enough about me. What about you? Why did you come back to Hollywood after 2 years? Did you manage to see the whole world in that time? Caspian shook his head. Not even close. I went to 22 countries on my own, but that's a far cry from seeing the whole world. Oh, I see, Aurora nodded. You came back because the director and his team are your usual collaborators, right? I remember you've worked with them on several films. It makes sense you do them a favor. Caspian stared at her intently. Actually, the reason I came back to Hollywood to film was because the director sent me a video. He said a very dedicated intern named Christy had shown up in Hollywood over the past 2 years. She was a grad student from the film school next door who worked on various sets for free. He said she was beautiful and had a real talent for acting, but for some reason, she was determined to stay behind the scenes. He told me that if you were willing to be his leading lady, he was certain he could make you a star, but you refused every time he brought it up. He said he'd never met anyone in Hollywood who loved films so much but refused to act in them. He called you Hollywood's newest oddity, right after me. He said we were polar opposites, one overly diligent, the other overly lazy. The director told me he begged you for a long time before you finally agreed to cameo with only a few shots. And the video he sent me was of those few shots. Aurora's relaxed expression slowly turned to one of astonishment. So, the reason you came back was because I was here, she asked. Yes. The moment I opened that video, I knew it was you. It wasn't just someone who looked like you. Even with the new hairstyle and different style, I recognized you instantly. I couldn't believe you were still alive, so I had to come back and see for myself. Chapter 39. Caspian's confession left Aurora with a whirlwind of emotions. She never knew that besides her family, there was someone else in the world, a near stranger, who had been so worried about her. She also didn't know that across the ocean in New York, Ethan Harrison, the man who had hurt her the most, had developed a psychological disorder from missing her too much. But Ethan was no different from a stranger to her now, so she didn't care about his problems. The person in front of her was what mattered. If only Ethan had understood that simple truth back then, perhaps they wouldn't have lost each other. Caspian, Aurora began, I truly had no idea that anyone besides my family cared so deeply about whether I lived or died. She wanted to say more, but Caspian's next words cut her off. Because I like you. His tone was uncharacteristically firm. Aurora, I've liked you since the first moment I saw you on screen. And after I learned about your personality and your tastes, I liked you even more. Every role you played, every word you said in an interview, every little thing you shared about yourself, I remember it all perfectly. I know that getting to know someone through a screen has its limits, so I tried every way I could to meet you. You probably don't know this, but I was at every one of your fan meetings, as long as my schedule allowed it. But just when I was about to ask a mutual friend in the industry to introduce us, I heard the news of your death. I was devastated. It felt like I had finally gotten a ticket to an amusement park, and just as I was about to go, I was told the park had closed down forever. Aurora, do you believe in destiny? Our families are old friends. We had a childhood betrothal. We missed so many chances to meet, yet here we are, reunited after all this time. I can't help but feel that this is fate giving us a chance. Every word of Caspian's confession was sincere, and Aurora felt herself moved by his emotion. It was true. They had been toyed with by fate so many times, yet they still found their way to each other. So, Aurora, can you give me a chance to pursue you? Caspian's eyes were fixed on her, unwilling to miss a single flicker of her expression. Tears welled up in Aurora's eyes. All she had ever longed for was a family and the feeling of being loved. In the past 2 years, she had found her family, but she had yet to experience what it was like to be truly cherished by someone outside of it. But now, here was a man standing before her, telling her with utmost sincerity how he had loved her for so many years. Such genuine emotion, such a humble request, who could possibly refuse? At the very least, Aurora couldn't refuse the man who had once been a light in her bleak life. She wiped a tear from her eye and answered, her voice choked with emotion. Okay, I'll give you a chance. A look of pure joy spread across Caspian's face. Really? Yanyan, you're willing to give me a chance? This is wonderful. Chapter 40. Just as he finished speaking, their long-awaited dinner finally arrived. Aurora glanced at the other dishes Caspian had ordered and was surprised to find they were all her favorites. She looked up at him, puzzled. Before she could ask, he explained. Before coming here, I paid a visit to your family and asked your mother about your preferences. I found that they matched exactly what you said in your old interviews. It seems you were a very honest celebrity. Caspian's words made her laugh. Of course, honesty is the best policy. Over dinner, they talked about everything under the sun and were amazed to discover how much their values and tastes aligned, even beyond what was shown on camera. Perhaps they really were destined for each other. After a satisfying meal, Caspian said, Yanyan, you probably don't know this, but I was at the only fan signing event you ever held in New York. Every fan there got to write down a sentence for you to sign. Do you remember what I asked you to write for me? Of course, she didn't, but she played along. What did I write? You wrote, "We are lovers who have never met." From that day on, Caspian asked Aurora out on a date whenever he was free. Sometimes they went hiking, sometimes they went skiing, and sometimes she would accompany him to places on his world tour map that he had yet to visit. When their parents found out, they were overjoyed. The two families were already close friends, and the prospect of becoming in-laws was more than they could have hoped for. They knew each other inside and out. A marriage between their children was the perfect outcome. 9 months later, the film they had worked on together was released during the holiday season. It was an instant hit, receiving rave reviews and becoming the box office champion of the year. Both the Kingsley and Shaw families went to see it together, renting out an entire theater to support their children's work. When the kiss scene came on screen, Aurora couldn't help but cover her face in embarrassment. Had they really kissed that passionately? A year later, Aurora returned to the entertainment industry as Christie and, alongside Caspian, carved out her own space in Hollywood. That same year, Ethan Harrison discovered that she was still alive and flew to America to beg for her forgiveness, only to be turned away at her door. He persisted for a month before finally giving up and returning to New York, utterly defeated. 2 years later, the Kingsley and Shaw families announced the union of their children. Aurora and Caspian shared the news of their engagement with their fans, receiving thousands of blessings. On their wedding night, Caspian reverently placed a stunningly large diamond ring on her finger. After a deep and loving kiss, he whispered in her ear, "Yanyan, from the very first day we met, you promised to be my fan for life. Now you have no chance to back out, because I'll be by your side to supervise you every single day from now on." Aurora hugged him tightly, feeling a happiness she had never known before. Hearing his words, she couldn't help but smile. "I know, my superstar. I will love you for a lifetime."